Chapter 550. Vast Sea of Blood Swords, Luo Xing. Aren't you meddling a little too much? What does it have to do with you that I am dealing with Zhuowen? Don't tell me that Zhuowen is from your Jade Lady Celestial Court. Zhu Qi's scarlet eyes shifted slightly as he looked indifferently at Luo Xing, who was standing on a stone statue in the Jade Pool Celestial Court. Even though Luo Xing was indeed much stronger than him, it was very unlikely that Luo Xing would be able to kill him if they really fought. With Luo Xing's character, it was impossible for him to stand against the Imperial Sword School because of Zhuowen. Luo Xing's face froze when she saw Zhu Qi's reaction. Zhu Qi was right. Zhuowen was not from the Jade Lady Celestial Court. She was just meddling in other people's business. Qin Badian and Lve Tao fell into a rare silence. Lve Tao's expression was as calm as water, but his slightly furrowed brows showed that he was not very calm. Lve Tao felt that Zhuowen was not simple. He was afraid that he would not die like this. As for the outcome, they would only know after the Sea of Blood Swords disappeared. When the Sea of Blood Swords completely engulfed Zhuowen, Zhuowen let out a low roar and instantly opened the 360 apertures in his body. Countless golden veins almost covered his entire body, making him look like a golden ancient Buddha. Kid! Be careful. In 5 breaths, the restraints on your body will be completely removed. At this moment, Xiao Hei's expression became extremely solemn. She did not expect Zhu Qi, who had not made any moves before, to suddenly attack without warning. Immediately, Zhuowen was in such a predicament. At this moment, Zhuowen could not even move. He could only forcefully open the 365 apertures of the Great Nirvana Sun and rely on his strong physical body to resist the erosion of the Sea of Blood Swords. Clang! Clang! Zhuowen's body was indeed tough. When the phantoms of the blood-red swords landed on his body, they did not cause him much damage. However, since he could not move, he could only passively become a living target. As a result, countless phantoms of the blood-red swords gathered on his body in an instant. Clang! 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 Why are there so many clang? Clang! 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 There seemed to be no end to the bloody sword phantoms around him, ceaselessly bombarding Zhuowen's body. Occasionally, sparks would fly in all directions. Although they were unable to break through Zhuowen's body, the recoil from each strike would cause Zhuowen's blood to boil and damage his internal organs. Clang! 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 Are you done? Clang! 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 You'll be done soon, Xiao Hei. Clang! 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 Looks like I have no choice but to go all out. Taking a deep breath, Zhuowen focused all of his attention on the meridians around his body. When the blood sword shadow gathered at a certain spot, he tried his best to control where the golden meridians were spread out to minimize the damage to himself. Clang! 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 Immediately, Zhuowen's eyes shone with a blazing golden light. At this moment, Zhuowen was in an extremely sorry state. Countless terrifying wounds had cracked open on his powerful body, and a river of blood had practically formed beneath his feet. Fortunately, he possessed the recovery ability of the Underworld King's heart, so he was not so weak that he could not move. Clang! 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 Zhuowen's eyelids twitched slightly. The storm of blood swords that had caused him to be in such a sorry state was actually so easily blocked by the bronze coffin. This was truly somewhat inconceivable to Zhuowen. Clang! 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 However, Zhuo Wen shook his head as a bitter smile surfaced from the corners of his mouth. It should be known that the number of heavenly soul treasures in Muqin County could be counted with one hand. In the entire Muqin County, it was likely that only the 5 super factions possessed one. Moreover, it was very likely that there was only one. Even a dignified superpower only had one heaven-rank spirit treasure, yet Zhuowen alone possessed such a treasure. It would be strange if others didn't covet it. As the saying goes, a tall tree attracts the wind. Zhuowen did not intend to reveal the existence of the bronze coffin unless he had no other choice. Brat, you're quite considerate. Blackie nodded his head in admiration when he heard this. It's time to go out now. Su Tianliang and that Zhu Qi, it's time for me to settle old scores with them. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with coldness. He took a step forward and slammed his palm on the edge of the sea of blood. Instantly, the entire sea of blood shook and collapsed. At this moment, the rest of the people outside the blood sea were staring at it. Everyone was waiting for the blood sea to disappear. What was Zhuowen's situation like? Of course, all of them knew that it was very likely that Zhuowen would be doomed this time. After all, Zhuowen was restrained by the green binding jade token and was utterly unable to move. Coupled with the terrifying might of the oceanic bloodsword, he was simply a living target. Under such a desperate situation, no one believed that Zhuowen could survive. At this moment, Su Tianliang had already returned to the stone statue of the Carefree Manor. Although he had suffered extremely serious injuries in the battle with Zhuowen and his strength had dropped to the point where he was even weaker than Ling Wushuang, he was still the #1 genius of the Carefree Manor. However, he was the #1 genius of the House of Marquis of Baichuan after all. Although Ling Wushuang and the others could seize Su Tianliang's inheritance, they did not dare to offend Su Tianliang and the House of Marquis of Baichuan behind him. Therefore, they could only watch as Su Tianliang once again ascended the stone statue of Carefree Manor. Brother Su. You said that Zhuowen's Qiankuan bag would belong to me. When the blood sea disappears, Brother Su, please don't snatch it from me. Just as Su Tianliang returned to the stone statue, Zhu Qi's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Hearing this, Su Tianliang's face immediately turned ugly and he began to curse Zhu Qi in his heart. At the beginning, he was the one fighting with Zhuowen. Zhu Qi did not contribute at all. Even after he was defeated, Zhu Qi did not have the slightest intention of helping. If it were not for the green binding jade token, Zhu Qi would not have cared about his life or death. He had risked his life to force Zhuowen into such a desperate situation. This Zhu Qi had only used one move and wanted to take all the benefits. This Zhu Qi was too shameless. However, Su Tianliang also knew that at this moment, he was seriously injured, and he had already used up his trump card. He was not Zhu Qi's opponent at all. Even if he did not agree, Zhu Qi would still snatch it from him. It was better to do him a favor now. Thinking of this, Su Tianliang smiled and said, Brother Zhu, what are you talking about? The one who killed Zhuowen is you. The little bastard's Qiankuan bag naturally belongs to you. Ha! Since Brother Su has said so, then I won't decline this responsibility. Zhu Qi flattered rather hypocritically. Hearing Zhu Qi's words, Su Tianliang had already begun to curse in his heart. He even secretly cursed Zhu Qi's 18 generations of ancestors. Kacha. Chapter 551. Challenging Zhu Qi. When this figure finally appeared in front of everyone's eyes, the entire place immediately descended into a strange silence. After which, numerous gazes involuntarily gathered on this figure. The figure's clothes were ragged, and his body was covered in golden light. His exposed skin was covered in terrifying golden veins. Other than that, there were also many terrifying wounds that continuously flowed with golden blood. However, these wounds were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Swoosh! A piercing sound suddenly burst out. The moment the figure that was suffused with golden light appeared, the huge bone spear in his hand was suddenly thrown out. It turned into a thin black lightning bolt and directly rushed towards Su Tianliang, who was on the stone statue of the carefree manner. At this moment, Su Tianliang also felt the terrifying piercing sound. When he saw that the piercing sound was rushing towards him, a shocked expression immediately appeared on his face. Moreover, what made him even more shocked was that the thing that was rushing towards him was Zhuowen's weapon, the tyrannical dragon scale bone spear. Damn it! Dodge it! Su Tianliang's body was extremely weak. He knew that he could not dodge the extremely fast bone spear. Therefore, he clenched his teeth and directly moved his body to avoid being hit in his vital parts. Plop! An arrow of blood spurted out. Su Tianliang's shoulder was directly pierced by the bone spear. The powerful force instantly propelled him backwards. In the end, he was nailed to a rock wall not far away. His entire body was suspended in the air and his posture was extremely miserable. Zhuowen, you're actually not dead? Su Tianliang suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His pupils shrunk to the size of needles as he looked at the figure suffused with golden light below. A trace of fear finally appeared on his face. He really could not understand. Zhuowen's limbs were clearly bound by the green binding jade token and he was unable to move at all. Furthermore, he was directly hit by Zhuowen's ocean of blood sword. No matter how he looked at it, it was a hopeless situation where he would definitely die. How exactly did Zhuowen survive? At this moment, the others finally recovered their wits. Their eyes were filled with dense shock as they looked at Zhuowen, whose entire body was covered in golden light. Even Lve Tao, who had an indifferent expression, involuntarily revealed a trace of emotion on his face. He was well aware of the power of the azure binding jade token and oceanic blood sword. If he had been bound by these two powerful attacks, he would have been in quite a bit of trouble. However, Zhuowen wasn't a 5-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. He wasn't even a 4-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, yet he had been able to break through that desperate situation. This Zhuowen was truly extraordinary. This is getting more and more interesting. What other secrets does Zhuowen have? Lve Tao's gaze focused on Zhuowen's body, and a trace of fighting spirit involuntarily rose in his heart. This Zhuowen was indeed as his intuition had guessed, he was not simple. Amongst them, the one who was most shocked was Zhu Qi, who was carrying the blood sword on his back. He could not understand how Zhuowen had managed to survive in such a hopeless situation, and even break the ocean of blood swords. Su Tianliang. Today, no one can save you. Go to hell. At this moment, Zhuowen's expression was extremely cold. The feeling of being bound and unable to move had made Zhuowen feel the taste of death for the first time. He knew that if his body wasn't strong enough, he really would have died there. When he thought of this, Zhuowen's killing intent towards Su Tianliang grew even stronger. With a stomp of his foot, countless bolts of lightning shot out. Zhuowen instantly shot towards Su Tianliang, who was hanging on the rock wall in the distance. Ha! What arrogance! Su Tianliang is the first heir of the Marquis of Baichuan's estate. How can he be compared to a lowly commoner like you who was born in a low-level city? Why don't you just stay here? Zhu Qi sneered from the stone statue of the Wind Sword sect. He waved the sword in his right hand, and immediately, countless strands of energy boiled. A huge black hole exploded in the air, and a blood sword several hundred meters long shot out from the black hole. Su Tianliang, who was originally filled with fear, finally calmed down a little when he saw Zhu Qi attack. He believed that with Zhu Qi's strength as a mid-4-wheel Ultimate Emperor, Zhu Qi was more than enough to stop Zhuowen. He might even be able to kill Zhuowen directly. Zhu Qi. Don't be in such a hurry to die. Once I deal with Su Tianliang, it'll be your turn very soon. A cold light flashed through Zhuowen's eyes as he looked at the huge blood sword shooting towards him. Zhu Qi had targeted him time and time again, which had already infuriated Zhuowen. Zhuowen no longer held back his strength. He opened all 365 acupoints in his body. In an instant, the golden light around Zhuowen reached its peak, making him seem like a miniature sun. Boom! In the face of the huge blood sword descending from the sky, Zhuowen's fist, which was suffused with golden light, tore through the air and directly smashed into the tip of the blood sword. Following that, everyone was shocked to discover that the mighty blood sword shattered into countless pieces under Zhuowen's golden fist. What? Zhu Qi's attack was directly shattered by Zhuowen? How can Zhuowen's physical strength be so terrifying? Qin Badian cried out involuntarily. He had personally seen Zhuowen shatter the huge blood sword with his bare hands. Looks like we've all underestimated Zhuowen. I'm afraid that his strongest point isn't his martial strength or mental strength, but his powerful physical body that he's never revealed before. LV Itao's expression turned solemn. Since Zhuowen had been able to shatter Zhu Qi's full-powered attack with a single punch, his physical body was probably as strong as a mid-stage four-wheel Emperor Realm cultivator like Zhu Qi. What? This little bastard's physical body is actually so strong that he could easily shatter Zhu Qi's attack. This Zhuowen has been hiding his strength all this time. Looking at Zhuowen, who was still rushing over, Su Tianliang's face finally revealed a deep fear. This Zhuowen had actually become so strong that it was suffocating him. Damn it! Zhuowen, just you wait. I, Su Tianliang, won't let this go so easily. Su Tianliang roared with unwillingness. He quickly took out his identity token and formed a seal. Immediately, he was sent out of the Yuanqi Tower by a pillar of light. Only a lonely bone spear was left on the stone wall, and Su Tianliang's figure was nowhere to be seen. In the end, Su Tianliang was actually forced by Zhuowen to give up the ancient inheritance and leave the Yuanqi Tower. This fact immediately shocked many people present. As one of the 5 super geniuses, Su Tianliang was actually forced to such a state by an unknown person like Zhuowen. If this news were to be known by outsiders, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. At this moment, Zhu Qi's expression was extremely gloomy. Zhuowen's sudden eruption of such a powerful physical strength already made him faintly feel a trace of threat. This Zhuowen had actually hidden his strength so deeply. When he first dealt with Su Tianliang, he didn't even use his full strength. Clang! Pulling out the bone spear from the stone wall, Zhuowen's gaze shifted slightly. His gaze immediately landed on Zhu Qi, who was on the wind sword sex stone statue. With a light leap, he landed on the ground and slowly walked towards the wind sword sex stone statue. The tip of the bone spear dragged on the ground, creating countless sparks. The surroundings were completely silent. Only the sound of the tip of the spear rubbing against the ground could be heard. When the crisp sound finally stopped, Zhuowen had already arrived at the foot of the wind sword sex stone statue. After which, Zhuowen slightly raised his head and gently raised the bone spear in his hand. The eerily cold tip of the spear silently aimed at Zhu Qi above as he said in a clear voice, "Zhu Qi. If you have the guts, get down here. Otherwise, I will directly blast you off the stone statue." Zhuowen's arrogant voice resounded clearly in the area. No one in the surroundings mocked the arrogance in his words. Instead, there was a trace of anticipation. Everyone knew that the strength that the current Zhuowen had displayed was sufficient to be on par with a genius like Zhuowen. Looking at Zhuowen, who had raised his spear below, Zhu Qi's scarlet eyes narrowed into a dangerous arc as he coldly said, "Since you are courting death, I will fulfill your wish. Although your physical body is indeed powerful, you are perhaps still not qualified to challenge me." With that, the blood-red sword on Zhu Qi's back buzzed and directly left its sheath. Grasping the blood-red sword in his right hand, Zhu Qi took a step forward and turned into a blood-red blur as he directly shot towards Zhuowen. A powerful aura surged out, causing the air to become extremely chaotic. Not qualified? You'll only know after you try. Countless streaks of golden light exploded. The Nirvana sun within Zhuowen's body had been unleashed to its limits. Right now, he was only at the peak of the ultimate third will emperor realm. He had no chance of victory against Zhu Qi at all. As a result, the only thing that Zhuowen could rely on was the entry-level Nirvana Sunday blazing golden light practically dyed the bone spear in Zhuowen's hand into a golden spear. An aura that was no weaker than Zhuowen's also erupted from Zhuowen's body. Boom! 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 Instantly, the golden and blood-red colors of the surroundings split into two regions. Two similarly powerful auras radiated with their own light and heat, erupting in the surroundings. Clang! 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 The sound of metal clashing continuously rang out as the golden and blood-red colors collided. The golden figure of Zhuowen and the blood-red figure of Zhu Qi had exchanged dozens of blows in an instant. This time, sparks flew, waves of air surged, and ripples spread out. So fast. The battle between Zhuowen and Zhu Qi is so much stronger than Su Tianliang's. I can't even see their figures clearly. I can't even see a trace of their afterimages. Ling Wushuang and the others were completely dumbfounded as they looked at the scene in the sky that was divided into two areas, one gold and one blood red. They could only hear the sounds of the battle, but they could not see the people involved. Even a hint of hot-bloodedness rose in their hearts as they imagined when they would be able to reach the level of Zhuowen and Zhu Qi. This battle that caused the heavens and earth to change color made their blood boil involuntarily. Boom! 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 The golden spear light and the blood-red blur of the blade collided once again in the sky. Immediately, the powerful collision caused the surrounding space to collapse. Gold and blood-red colors practically filled the entire sky. Thump! 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 The golden figure and the blood-red figure both retreated a few hundred meters. Their feet suddenly stepped in mid-air before they could barely stop themselves. Ha! I really didn't expect that Zhuowen's strength could be so powerful. I, Zhu Qi, have really misjudged you previously. However, as I said before, your strength is not enough to defeat me today. Zhu Qi, who was full of blood-red qi, stared fixedly at Zhuowen in front of him as the corners of his mouth curled up into a mocking smile. Not enough? Humph, then I should be able to. Zhuowen's face was full of indifference. He stomped his feet and a wave of mental energy gushed out from his Naiwen palace. It was the mental energy that had broken through to level 4 upper realm a long time ago. Chapter 552. The Emperor's Wrath. This mental energy is the mental energy of a level 4 advanced mastery. Feeling the powerful mental energy surging out from Zhuowen's body, Zhu Qi's pupils shrank to the extreme as shock filled his face. Although Zhuowen had already revealed his identity as a level 4 Arcana Master back in the Mountain of Trials, Zhuowen's mental strength was only at the level of a level 4 small success. Now, however, Zhuowen's mental strength was much stronger than it was at the Mountain of Trials. This was clearly the power of a level 4 large success. Creak. Level 4 Advanced Mastery Mental Energy. At this moment, no matter how calm Lv Tao was, his heart was shaken by the reality before his eyes. One must know that Zhuowen was not even 20 years old. To be able to become a level 4 Arcanist at such a young age was already extremely impressive. Even someone as prideful as Lv Tao could not help but admire Zhuowen's talent in mental energy. However, after reaching level 4 Arcanist, the difficulty of advancing was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. If one did not have good luck and comprehension, it was very likely that one would be stuck for life. However, Zhuowen's mental energy had just reached the level 4 advanced mastery not long ago. Now, he had actually advanced to the level 4 advanced mastery mental energy. Wasn't this speed a little too fast? Not only Lv Tao, but Luo Xing, Qin Batian and the rest also had ugly expressions on their faces. Only now did they realize that Zhuowen's strongest point was not his terrifying physical strength, but his mental energy that had already reached the level 4 advanced mastery. How many trump cards does this Zhuowen have? Why do I feel that this kid's trump cards are endless? Qin Batian smiled bitterly as he stared at the golden figure in the sky with fear in his eyes. He noticed that every single time everyone thought that Zhuowen would fail and perish, this kid would erupt with an extraordinary trump card, and he'd avert danger every single time. It was like this when he faced Su Tianliang, and now it was the same when he faced Zhuowen. At this moment, Qin Batian's heart was filled with reverence towards the small sun-like figure in the sky. He was very clear that if he were to face off against Zhuowen, he would only be defeated in the end. Zhu Qi, whether I am qualified or not is not up to you to decide. Let's see. Come on. Let me see your strongest ability. Otherwise, you will lose without a doubt. At this moment, boundless spiritual power formed a huge spiritual storm around Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen stood in the center of the spiritual storm, the blazing golden light illuminating the surrounding darkness like a lighthouse in the dark night. The powerful aura rolled over and actually caused Zhu Qi to retreat repeatedly. His expression was extremely cold and unsightly. At this moment, Zhuowen was inexplicably shocked. He did not expect Zhuowen to be hiding such a powerful mind force. If Zhuowen was only an initial grade 4 Arcana Master, he would not be afraid at all. However, a peak level 4 Arcana Master was extremely powerful. He was already above the mid-stage of the Ultimate Emperor realm. Zhu Qi's expression was extremely grave and faced with this powerful pressure. Are you saying that you want to decide the outcome of the battle in one move? Humph. So what if you have level 4 advanced spiritual power? I, Zhu Qi, am not necessarily your opponent. Zhu Qi's eyes flickered. His face was filled with murderous intent. He stomped his foot, and the blood-red longsword in his right hand suddenly appeared. Immediately, an extremely terrifying blood qi emerged around him. This blood qi seemed to be real, and looked quite terrifying and sinister. Have a taste of my move. This move is the highest codex of our sword control school. If you can break through my strongest move, then I have nothing to say about my loss. If you can't break it, then you can go die. With a low roar, the blood-red qi around Zhu Qi became extremely dense. Powerful auras spiraled out and swirled in the surroundings. Zhu Qi formed a complicated sword seal with his hands. Immediately, the surrounding blood-red qi began to boil violently, showing signs of condensing. Blood Sword Codex, final move, Emperor's Wrath. A dignified and vast voice suddenly boomed through the surroundings. The space behind Zhu Qi suddenly collapsed, and a huge figure stepped out from the collapsed space. A ferocious aura radiated outwards. This phantom wore a purple gold crown on its head and a purple gold dragon robe on its body. It had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, and it had a majestic aura. Around its body, there were faint auspicious clouds rising, and dragon shadows shooting in all directions. It was indescribably wonderful, and it was just like the image of a mighty emperor. Zhu Qi roared at the sky as soon as the emperor's figure appeared. The dense blood-red qi in the surroundings actually began to condense, turning into several hundred huge, strange blood-red swords. Countless blood-red dragon silhouettes constantly revolved around the swords. They seemed extremely heavy and boundless. The emperor's figure directly grasped the huge blood-red sword in his hand as soon as it formed. At this moment, a sliver of viciousness appeared on the emperor's handsome face. Terrifying flames of fury burned in his eyes, as if his heart was filled with monstrous fury. Emperor's Wrath, millions of corpses and thousands of miles of blood. The emperor's figure's voice was as vast as the sea as it boomed through the area. Then, the figure, which was like a lofty mountain, suddenly stepped forward. The ground cracked, gravel floated up, and airwaves spread out. Die! Looking down at Zhuowen, who was like an ant, the emperor's figure was furious. The blood-red sword in his hand, which was surrounded by countless dragon silhouettes, tore through the void and shattered the space, and slashed down at Zhuowen's head. It's actually the Blood Sword Codex, the highest codex of the Imperial Sword Sect. I never thought that Zhu Qi would use the final move of the Blood Sword Codex, Emperor's Wrath. It seems that Zhu Qi is really going all out. Lve Tao whispered as his eyes flickered. As the supreme codex of a superpower like the ruling Sword Gate, the Blood Sword Codex was a renowned existence in the entire county. Every move contained within it was extremely terrifying, and the final move was called Emperor's Wrath. Its power was the most terrifying. In the past, Zhu Qi had relied on this final move to kill a late-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. From then on, his name had shaken the entire provincial capital, and he had once been known as the Second Genius. However, Luo Xing's rise later on had overshadowed his title as the Second Genius. Zhuowen. You are the third person to force me to use the final move of the Blood Sword Codex. If you die under this move, then you can die without regrets. Zhu Qi stood on the shoulder of the figure and looked down indifferently at Zhuowen. The corners of his mouth were full of a victorious smile. After all, he had used this move to kill an advanced four-wheel Emperor Realm martial artist. Although Zhuowen had level 4 advanced mental power, in his opinion, it would be very difficult for him to block the move of the Emperor's Wrath. If he was not careful, he might even die from this move. At this moment, Zhuowen's face was filled with seriousness. Zhu Qi's strongest move, the Emperor's Wrath, was extremely powerful. It actually made him feel threatened. Clang! 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 Taking in a deep breath, Zhuowen suddenly slapped his Qiankuan pouch. Immediately, streaks of cold light shot out like the bright moon in the night sky. They were extremely dazzling in the pitch-black night. This was the Ultimate Astral Sword, a 4th-grade origin formation. The Ultimate Astral Sword had changed drastically. Both its presence and might were much more powerful than before. Ever since Zhuowen had become a 4th-grade arcanist, he had been constantly improving and repairing the Ultimate Astral Sword. In addition, during the few days he had spent in the ancient ruins, Zhuowen had obtained a lot of resources, including a considerable number of sword-shaped spiritual treasures. Moreover, these sword-shaped spiritual treasures were all low earth rank spiritual treasures. Originally, the Ultimate Astral Sword was composed of 108 advanced sword-shaped spiritual treasures. Now, after Zhuowen's continuous improvement and assembly, almost all the advanced spiritual treasures had been replaced by earth rank spiritual treasures. As a result, the Ultimate Astral Sword was now much more powerful than before. Coupled with Zhuowen's mental strength of the greater 4th grade, he could completely unleash the full power of the Ultimate Astral Sword. As a result, the Ultimate Astral Sword combined with his mental strength was probably even more powerful than his physical strength. The first move of the Ultimate Astral Sword, Flying Sword Slash. The second move, Falling Flower Wave Slash. The third move, Revolving Heaven Sword Dance. 9 consecutive moves. The moment he summoned the Ultimate Astral Sword, Zhuowen immediately used the 3 moves contained in the Ultimate Astral Sword. Suddenly, countless sharp sword lights converged above Zhuowen, forming a terrifying sea of sword lights. The surrounding tens of thousands of feet was filled with endless sword light. The sound of metal clashing constantly resounded from the sea of sword light, crisp and ear-piercing. The blood-red sword in the hand of the Emperor's shadow was extremely fast. It cut through the void and instantly arrived above the sea of sword lights above Zhuowen. The moment the sharp blood sword came into contact with the sea of sword lights, it was as if it had fallen into a swamp. Its speed was greatly reduced, and it even looked a little slow. At the same time, the terrifying aftermath of the collision spread out in the void and shattered countless spatial barriers. The sea of sword lights and the blood sword were in a deadlock. Just break it for me. Seeing that the blood sword was blocked by the sea of sword lights, Zhuowen's scarlet eyes narrowed. He waved his sword, and the Emperor's shadow's aura suddenly soared. He suddenly swung his sword again, and it actually pushed the sea of sword lights back dozens of meters. Zhuowen snorted and could not help but retreat. Ha! Zhuowen, I said that you can't take the Emperor's wrath. You are indeed strong, but compared to me, you are still far behind. Seeing that Zhuowen directly retreated, Zhu Qi's face suddenly revealed a happy smile, and a trace of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. He wanted to let Zhuowen clearly understand that the consequences of going against him would be a foolish decision. Thinking of this, Zhu Qi waved his sword again, and forced the sea of sword lights back again. It was almost suppressing Zhuowen, and he could not make any extra movements. Is that so? The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curved into a smile. Then, waves of mental energy surged out from his Naiwen palace. Suddenly, the sea of sword lights soared to an extremely terrifying level, and it actually shattered the huge blood sword. Even the Emperor's shadow in the void faintly showed signs of collapsing. Pfft! Seeing that the Emperor's wrath was broken, Zhu Qi violently spat out a mouthful of blood and flew back. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Chapter 553. The two ancient inheritances left empty when Zhuowen released an even more terrifying mind power. The other onlookers were puzzled. They also found that Zhuowen's mind power had indeed increased a lot, but it was still only at the level 4 advanced mastery. Zhuowen actually has more than one strand of mind power. It seems that he has at least 100 strands. LV Yitao's observation was much sharper than the others. He instantly saw the abnormality in Zhuowen's body. Just as LV Yitao had said, Zhuowen's mental strength was still at the level of a 4th-grade advanced arcanist. However, Zhuowen possessed a terrifying mental strength secret skill, the Myriad Evolution Scripture. This secret skill could transform his mental strength into tens of thousands of strands, and each strand of mental strength was comparable to an arcanist of the same level. After the derivation of Myriad Evolution Scripture, Zhuowen now had nearly 100 strands of mind power in his Naiwen Palace, and each strand was comparable to a level 4 advanced mastery arcanist. If all these strands of mind power were to be released, it would be comparable to the simultaneous attack of nearly 100 level 4 advanced mastery arcanists. If such a huge amount of mind power were to be superimposed, its power was self-evident. The power of the Emperor's wrath that Zhuowen displayed was indeed terrifying. Even though Zhuowen displayed level 4 advanced mastery mind power, he was still suppressed. In the end, Zhuowen was forced to release nearly 100 strands of mind power hidden in his Naiwen Palace. Only then was he able to break Zhu Qi's Emperor's wrath. At this moment, Zhu Qi's mouth was spurting blood. He stared at Zhuowen's figure below, which was glowing with golden light. He still could not figure out how Zhuowen broke his Emperor's wrath. Clearly, Zhuowen's mind power was only at the level 4 advanced mastery. Zhuowen stood quietly and waved his right hand. Suddenly, the sea of sword light in the sky shattered and turned into a stream of sword light. It cut through the void and swept directly toward Zhu Qi, who was flying backward. He did not intend to let Zhu Qi go. If possible, it would be best to kill Zhu Qi here to prevent future troubles. Zhuowen. It's not that easy to kill me. As Zhu Qi flew backward, he could sense the killing intent on Zhuowen's face. His face filled with both shock and anger. Gritting his teeth, he pulled out his identity medallion and prepared to flee. You want to leave? It's not that easy. Zhuowen's sharp eyes immediately spotted Zhu Qi, who was in midair, and had already silently taken out his identity token. With a stomp of his right foot, the bone spear under his feet immediately floated into the air. Next, he exerted force with his right foot, and the bone spear transformed into a ray of light that accurately swept past Zhu Qi's palm. Dong! In an instant, the identity badge in Zhu Qi's hand was knocked away by the bone spear. Furthermore, under the power of the bone spear, he violently vomited a mouthful of blood. At this moment, Zhu Qi was truly terrified. Looking at the sword light in the sky, this was the first time he felt that death was so close. Damn it! Damn it! Cursing, Zhuowen could only raise his blood-red sword again. He knew that if he didn't resist, he really would die under Zhuowen's sword light. 10 Swords Blood Shield Technique. In midair, Zhu Qi forcefully suppressed the boiling blood in his body. He fiercely twisted his waist, and the blood-red sword in his hand transformed into numerous sword shadows. Suddenly, these sword shadows were like blood-red shields, surrounding Zhuowen in the middle. It looked like an impregnable fortress. The moment Zhu Qi used the 10 Swords Blood Shield technique, the sword light in the sky had already arrived, and instantly slammed into the 10 Swords Blood Shield technique. Boom! What made many people dumbfounded was that Zhu Qi, who had used the 10 Swords Blood Shield technique, directly transformed into a blood-red shadow the moment he came into contact with the sword light. He violently slammed into the ground below, causing the ground to shatter into countless pieces, forming a huge pit that was hundreds of feet deep. In the deep pit, the 10 Swords Blood Shield technique around Zhu Qi had almost shattered and dimmed. His body was covered in countless wounds, and streams of blood directly spurted out. His entire body was extremely weak, and he looked exceptionally miserable. Swoosh! A piercing sound descended. Zhuowen coldly looked at Zhu Qi, whose body was twitching in the pit. His face was pale and bloodless, and his eyes were filled with indifference. Zhu Qi. If you want to kill me, Zhuowen, then you should be prepared to be killed instead. It's useless even if you're a super genius from the Imperial Sword Sect, one of the 5 super forces in the provincial capital. Zhuowen looked down from above and threw the bone spear in his hand. It directly tore through the surrounding air and shot towards Zhu Qi's forehead. Zhuowen was determined to kill Zhu Qi. Zhuowen. You dare to kill me? If you kill me, your Vine Armor City will suffer the revenge of our Imperial Sword Sect. At this moment, fear surfaced in Zhu Qi's eyes, especially when he looked at the bone spear that was shooting towards him. A trace of despair had already surfaced in his eyes. However, just as the bone spear was about to pierce Zhu Qi's forehead, a formless and transparent energy suddenly appeared and directly knocked the bone spear away. Who? With a wave of his right hand, Zhuowen caught the bone spear that had already been knocked away. He frowned and slightly raised his head. Immediately, he saw Lve Tao on the Tiangang sect stone statue and slowly withdrew his hand. It was obvious that Lve Tao had stopped him just now. Zhuowen. After all, Zhu Qi is the #1 genius of the Imperial Sword Sect. He is highly regarded by the sect master of the Xianyuan sect. If you kill him just like that, then you will truly become a mortal enemy of the Imperial Sword Sect. Moreover, the War of the 9 Counties is about to begin. After all, Zhu Qi is one of the 5 super geniuses and the main force of the War of the 9 Counties. You cannot kill this person. Lve Tao placed his hands behind his back and calmly looked straight at Zhuowen. There was not the slightest hint of abnormality in his eyes. Hearing this, Zhuowen frowned slightly. He was extremely wary of the #1 genius of the House of Marquis Qin. After all, he had no idea how strong Lve Tao was. He only knew that this person's cultivation was at least at the ultimate emperor realm. Although he had the bronze coffin as a trump card, he knew that his chances of winning against Lve Tao were not high. Zhuowen. The War of the 9 Counties concerns the honor of Muqin County. I hope that you can give me, Lve Tao, some face and let Zhu Qi go. Moreover, I know that you once killed the second son of the House of Marquis Baichuan, Su Liang, in the Dark Forest. This means that you have already formed a deadly feud with the House of Marquis Baichuan. If you kill Zhu Qi now, I'm afraid that the Imperial Sword Sect will not rest until you are dead. I know that you are a smart person and know how terrible the consequences of killing Zhu Qi will be. Therefore, my suggestion may be useful to you. Moreover, the leader of the Imperial Sword Sect, Xianyuanli, is quite magnanimous. As long as you don't kill Zhu Qi, I don't think he will find trouble with you. You don't have to worry that Zhu Qi will incite the other members of the Imperial Sword Sect to deal with you after he returns. Just as Zhuowen was secretly frowning, Lve Tao's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. He could not help but be slightly startled. Lv Tao's words were rather sincere and his analysis was very methodical. Zhuowen pondered for a moment and agreed. Now that he had completely offended the house of Marquis Baichuan, there was no need to offend the Imperial Sword Sect. Since young Master Lv has spoken, then I will spare Zhu Qi's dog life. The next time you bark like a dog, I, Zhuowen, will personally take your dog life. As he spoke, Zhuowen no longer paid any attention to Zhu Qi, who was in the deep pit with a vicious expression. Instead, he walked towards Qing Lian, who was not far away. Now that he had consecutively defeated Su Tianliang and Zhu Qi, 2 out of the 5 ancient inheritances were empty. He planned to give one of them to Qing Lian. Zhu Qi could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood in anger when he heard Zhuowen's words. He wanted to retort a few words, but he remembered that he had barely managed to keep his life. In the end, he swallowed his anger. However, from the resentment that flashed in his eyes, Zhuowen knew that Zhu Qi would not let it go so easily. Zhuowen. Just you wait. Since you won't kill me, you won't have the chance in the future. After viciously cursing in his heart, Zhu Qi could no longer bear the strange gazes of the surrounding people. He awkwardly found his identity token, turned into a beam of light, and disappeared from the place of inheritance. Su Tianliang and Zhu Qi were both defeated by Zhuowen. This. Ling Wushuang, Qing Lian, and the other 3 stared blankly at the disappearing Zhu Qi and the slowly approaching Zhuowen. A sense of unreality instantly welled up in their hearts. Although they all admitted that Zhuowen was indeed powerful, in their hearts, they still did not think that Zhuowen had the strength comparable to the 5 super geniuses. However, Zhuowen, who had consecutively defeated Su Tianliang and Zhu Qi, let them know how ridiculous their arrogance was. The strength of Zhuowen in front of them had far exceeded their imagination. To be able to defeat Zhu Qi, his strength was probably close to the second genius, Luo Xing, right? Slowly arriving in front of Qing Lian, Zhuowen smiled and said, "Now, there are still 2 ancient inheritances left. They are the Wind Sword Sect and the Carefree Villa. Qing Lian, you can choose one first. Treat it as a reward for your help in the past." As soon as Zhuowen said this, Ling Wushuang and the others who stood nearby couldn't help but be stunned. Qing Lian was stunned as well. She never imagined that Zhuowen would actually directly cup his hands and hand over a seat and let Qing Lian choose first. "Don't worry about anything. If you treat me, Zhuowen, as a friend, then choose. Otherwise, you don't treat me as a friend." Zhuowen knitted his brows and said with some displeasure. Seeing Zhuowen's appearance, Qing Lian could only helplessly nod her head. She was very clear about Zhuowen's character. Once he had decided on something, even 10 bulls could not pull him back. If she was hesitant, Zhuowen would not like it. "Then I choose the Wind Sword Sect." After pondering for a moment, Qing Lian finally chose the Wind Sword Sect. Subsequently, her jade-like feet tapped lightly. Under the envious gazes of Ling Wushuang and the other 2, she directly leaped onto the stone statue of the Wind Sword Sect. When Luo Xing, who was on the stone statue of the Jade Pool Immortal Garden, saw Zhuowen hand over an ancient inheritance to Qing Lian, a trace of gentleness surfaced in her beautiful eyes. "As for the inheritance of the Carefree Villa, the 3 of you can compete among yourselves. Whoever is stronger will be able to obtain the inheritance of the Carefree Villa." Chapter 554. Choice. Blood Demon Inheritance. When Zhuowen finished his sentence, not only were Ling Wushuang, Qing Hu, and Luo Yao stunned, even Lv Tao, Luo Xing, Qing Lian, and Qin Batian were stunned. Zhuowen's words confused them. Was he planning to give up the last inheritance of Carefree Manor? But ancient inheritances were so precious, how could anyone be so stupid to give it up? Zhuowen. Are you kidding? At this moment, it was Ling Wushuang, Qing Hu, and Luo Yao who were the most perturbed. As far as they were concerned, the last ancient inheritance belonged to Zhuowen alone, and they didn't dare fight for it or even think about it. After all, Zhuowen had defeated two super geniuses, Su Tianliang and Zhu Qi. They could not afford to offend him. Therefore, the three of them subconsciously thought that Zhuowen was joking. Seeing how cautious Ling Wushuang and the other two were, Zhuowen shook his head helplessly. He did not answer Ling Wushuang's question. Instead, he stomped his feet and two pairs of huge lightning wings appeared on his back. He left the place and flew towards the end of the inheritance. This, Zhuowen's sudden departure immediately caused many people to be astonished. They had not expected that what Zhuowen had said earlier was true. He actually intended to give up the last ancient inheritance. Lve Tao, who was on the Tiangang Sect's stone statue, frowned. He did not understand Zhuowen's actions. Zhuowen could have obtained the inheritance of Carefree Manor. Why did he give it up in the end? Or was there something more attractive to him than Carefree Manor? Could it be, as if he had thought of something, Lve Tao suddenly turned around and stared at the direction Zhuowen had left. Indeed, Zhuowen had gone to the end of the inheritance. There was a huge blood-colored stone statue with a beast's head and a human body. The inheritance was called Blood Demon Inheritance. Is Zhuowen crazy? He actually chose the Blood Demon Inheritance? At that moment, Lve Tao acted out of character and could not help but exclaim. His exclamation attracted the attention of the others. Swish! Swish! Numerous gazes immediately converged on Zhuowen's departing figure. At this moment, Zhuowen had unknowingly climbed onto the huge blood-colored stone statue. He actually chose the Blood Devil Legacy. Was Zhuowen's brain flooded with water? Or do you want to die? Qin Beishan's eyes were filled with bewilderment and disbelief. The Blood Devil Legacy was much more difficult than the Carefree Manor's legacy. Not only that, failure would result in death. There were simply too many drawbacks. Choosing the Blood Devil Legacy was akin to courting death in Qin Beishan's eyes. Zhuowen is too impulsive. Luo Xing and Qing Lian frowned at the same time, especially Qing Lian. She clenched her fists and her heart was filled with worry. When Ling Wushuang, Qing Hu, and Luo Yao came back to their senses, they were pleasantly surprised. They never thought that Zhuowen would actually give up the Carefree Manor's inheritance and choose the Blood Devil's inheritance instead. They knew that this was an opportunity for the three of them. Swish! Ling Wushuang immediately reacted the fastest. She took the lead and shot towards the Carefree Manor's inheritance. Qing Hu and Luo Yao glanced at each other and crossed each other in an attempt to stop Ling Wushuang. Ling Wushuang, if you want to obtain the Carefree Manor's inheritance, you'll have to get past us first. Qing Hu and Luo Yao immediately used their best attacks and worked together to attack Ling Wushuang. The two of you aren't my opponent. If you really want to compete with me, don't blame me for being impolite. A trace of coldness flashed through Ling Wushuang's eyes when she saw Qing Hu and Luo Yao's joint attack. She was an early third will Ultimate King Realm expert, while Qing Hu and Luo Yao were only peak second will Ultimate King Realm experts. She didn't fear them at all even if they worked together. Ling Wushuang cried out in a lovely voice. A long silver whip had unknowingly appeared in her hand. With a wave of her jade-like hand, countless whip shadows surged out in an overwhelming manner, directly breaking the combined attack of Qing Hu and Luo Yao. Spurt! The whip images struck their chests mercilessly after their attack was broken through, immediately causing them to vomit blood. They were blown away and landed heavily on the ground, forming a huge crater. After defeating Qing Hu and Luo Yao, Ling Wushuang put away her silver whip and flipped over to the stone statue of Carefree Manor. Her pretty face was filled with excitement. At the same time, her beautiful eyes looked at the figure on the huge blood-red stone statue in front of her. Her eyes were filled with gratitude. She had never thought that Zhuowen's two unintentional actions would actually save her life. Ling Wushuang was naturally extremely grateful. Zhuowen, do you really plan on choosing the Blood Demon's inheritance? You don't need me to tell you the dangers of the inheritance, do you? In the end, LV Tao still spoke up. He didn't want a peerless genius like Zhuo Wen to fall helplessly because he chose the Blood Devil legacy. He was very clear about the importance of a genius like Zhuo Wen to Muqin County. If this person was nurtured properly, he would definitely be of great help to Muqin County in the Battle of the Nine Counties half a year later. It would be a pity if he fell in the inheritance land. However, Zhuowen shook his head and said with a serious expression, "No one can change the decision that I, Zhuowen, have made. The blood demon inheritance is indeed terrifying, but if I'm afraid because of this, how can I face the difficulties on the path of martial arts that is full of thorns?" After speaking, Zhuowen no longer paid attention to LV Tao. Instead, he silently sat cross-legged on the shoulder of the blood-red statue and began to silently wait for the blood demon inheritance to open. Hearing Zhuowen's words, LV Tao felt somewhat helpless. This Zhuowen's temper was indeed stubborn. He was somewhat similar to Lu Hantian in the past. Lu Yitao didn't know why, but when he looked at Zhuo Wen's figure on the blood-red statue, he couldn't help but think of 100 years ago. That person had defeated all the geniuses in Muqin County and obtained first place in the Origin Qi Tower battle. That person had almost entered the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. That person was his uncle, Lu Hantian. Zhuowen. The gap between ideals and reality is always cruel. Even Lu Hantian in the past did not obtain the slightest benefit from the blood demon inheritance. Are you so confident that you can successfully pass the trial of the blood demon inheritance? It's just a pity for a genius like you. Shaking his head, a trace of pity appeared on LV Tao's face. Perhaps the moment Zhuowen chose the blood demon inheritance, this Zhuowen was already a dead man in his heart. Therefore, he no longer paid attention to Zhuowen. Instead, he closed his eyes and silently waited for the inheritance to open. After about half an incense stick's time, the surface of the 5 inheritance stone statues in the core area of the inheritance land suddenly emitted a dazzling light. 5 pillars of light shot up from the statues and LV Tao, Luo Xing, and the other 4 people on the 5 statues slowly disappeared into the pillars of light. Clearly, they had been sent to their respective trial spaces by the 5 inheritance stone statues. They've all left? Looks like this blood demon inheritance is really different. It still hasn't sent me to the trial space. Slowly opening his eyes, Zhuowen saw that LV Tao and the other 4 had already disappeared. The corner of his mouth slightly curled, but his eyes revealed a trace of anticipation. What would the trial space of the blood demon inheritance be like? Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Just as Zhuowen's imagination was running wild, a blood-colored pillar of light shot up into the sky and directly enveloped Zhuowen. However, after the pillar of light disappeared, Zhuowen's figure had already disappeared. On the platform outside the Origin Qi Tower, the 9 people led by LV Nantian quietly stood on the high platform, enjoying the attention of countless faction leaders. Everyone knew that the 9 people still standing on the high platform were all exceptional geniuses who had entered the inheritance land. In particular, Guyu Tian, whose aura was the weakest, received the most attention. Now, everyone knew that the city lord of this unknown low-level city, Rot 10 Armor City, was called Guyu Tian. This was because a famous dark horse had appeared in Rot 10 Armor City, and that dark horse was called Zhuowen. It was because of Zhuowen's name that Rot 10 Armor City had become a hot topic of discussion. Even Gu Xian and Hu Wuying, who had already been eliminated, were now proud when they said that they were geniuses of Rot 10 Armor City. The current Rot 10 Armor City was no longer the same as before. Due to Zhuowen's stunning performance in the Origin Qi Tower, who knew how many faction leaders wanted to curry favor with this small Rot 10 Armor City. Even the number 1 super city, Ling Tian City, took the initiative to extend an olive branch to Rot 10 Armor City. This action naturally raised Rot 10 Armor City's prestige to the extreme. Now, Gu Xian and Hu Wuying truly felt elated. The geniuses of super cities, who usually looked down on them, were now very careful when they spoke to them. This great contrast made the 2 of them feel very pleased. Of course, the two of them also knew that this great contrast was brought about by Zhuowen. Therefore, the two of them revered and worshipped Zhuowen like a god. The ownership of the 5 ancient inheritances should be revealed very soon. This time, Lve Tao, Luo Xing, and Zhuowen should be able to obtain one of the inheritances. The remaining 2 inheritances should be decided by Qin Batian, Su Tianliang, and Zhuowen. Lu Nantian raised his head to look at the top of the Origin Qi Tower and smiled. Zhuowen shouldn't have the strength to obtain the ancient inheritances. This child's potential is indeed strong, but his foundation is too weak and his strength isn't strong. There's still quite a large gap between him and Su Tianliang and Qin Batian. Su Cheng suddenly interrupted. When mentioning Zhuowen, the short and fat Marquis Baichuan's eyes were filled with coldness. Brother Su is right. Zhuowen's strength is indeed not strong. It will be difficult for him to obtain an ancient inheritance. The master of the meteorite, Marquis Yongsheng, and Xian Yuanli all nodded in agreement. Do you all think so? However, I feel that Zhuowen isn't simple. Lu Nantian shook his head and spoke up for Zhuowen. Lu Nantian's performance naturally caused the others to be surprised. However, they didn't take it to heart. In their opinion, Lu Nantian was planning to recruit Zhuowen, so they were only subjectively optimistic about Zhuowen. Whoosh! Suddenly, a beam of light shot out from the top of the Origin Qi Tower and landed at the bottom of the tower. A figure was faintly discernible within the beam of light. Someone was eliminated so quickly. Chapter 555. The 2 eliminated geniuses on the high platform, the Lord of Ling Tian City, Ling Tian, Gu Tian, and the other lords of Ling Tian City had slightly unnatural expressions on their faces. It was unlikely that it was one of the 5 super geniuses who had been eliminated so quickly. It was very likely that it was a genius under their command. On the other hand, Su Cheng appeared somewhat indifferent. In his opinion, the 5 ancient inheritances were definitely the 5 super geniuses. Even Zhuowen would not be able to compete with the 5 super geniuses. The first one to be eliminated might be that little bastard Zhuowen. Su Cheng maliciously muttered in his heart as a sinister smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Swoosh! The white light completely disappeared, and an extremely miserable figure suddenly fell to the ground. This person's clothes were ragged, and his hair was disheveled. In particular, there was a huge wound on his shoulder blade. Streams of cherry-red blood continuously spurted out from the wound. When everyone's gazes gathered on this sorry figure's face, the scene fell into a strange silence. Hiss! After the silence, the sound of people inhaling cold air rose and fell. Everyone looked at this figure in disbelief because this extremely sorry figure was none other than one of the 5 super geniuses, Su Tianliang. The 9 people on the high platform were also stunned. Even Su Cheng, who had a cold smile on his face, was stunned. The smile on his face gradually froze, and his pupils shrank to the size of needles. He stared in disbelief at his son's sorry figure, whose face was pale and bloodless. Ah! Tianliang, who injured you like this? This old man will definitely pull out his tendons and peel off his bones, and make him suffer a fate worse than death. Finally, Su Cheng roared and instantly arrived at Su Tianliang's side. He hurriedly helped Su Tianliang, whose mind was already somewhat muddled, up. His entire body trembled in anger, and his eyes were bloodshot. It's actually Su Tianliang. The first one to be eliminated is actually Su Tianliang. Just, what's going on? How is this possible? Su Tianliang is an expert at the peak of the Ultimate Emperor stage, and he's also one of the 5 super geniuses. Apart from the other 4 super geniuses, who else has the strength to defeat him? Did Lve Tao make a move? At this moment, the surrounding crowd's emotions were boiling. They all knew that there were a total of 5 ancient inheritances in the land of inheritance. Logically speaking, each of the 5 super geniuses should be able to obtain one. However, it was also possible that Su Tianliang had recklessly competed with Lv Tao. Hence, it was not surprising that he was beaten to such a state. In the eyes of the surrounding people, only the other 4 super geniuses could beat Su Tianliang to such a state. As for the other 5, they should not have such strength. At this moment, Su Tianliang's aura was extremely weak, and he was constantly coughing up blood. He leaned on Su Chang's arm, and his eyes revealed a trace of hatred. He said, "Father. It was that little bastard Zhuowen. That little bastard almost killed me. You must avenge me." Su Tianliang's voice was not loud, but the people around him were not ordinary people. Naturally, they heard Su Tianliang's words clearly. Especially when they heard the name Zhuowen, the surroundings became quiet again. Zhuowen again. When did Zhuowen become so strong? Even Su Tianliang, who was at the peak of the ultimate emperor stage, had been defeated by him. Moreover, some of the more observant people could even see that when Su Tianliang mentioned Zhuowen, a trace of fear appeared on his face. Clearly, Su Tianliang was extremely afraid of Zhuowen, as if Zhuowen was a ferocious beast. Zhuowen actually defeated Su Tianliang. When the master of the meteorite and the other 2 heard what Su Tianliang said, a trace of surprise and shock appeared on their faces. Although Zhuowen's performance at Zhongling Mountain was astonishing, it only meant that his potential was strong enough. As for his strength, they clearly remembered that Zhuowen's strength was only at the peak of the ultimate emperor stage not long ago. As for the unknown Guyu Tian, a look of ecstasy appeared on his face. Even now, he still could not react. He did not even dare to think that Zhuowen could actually defeat Su Tianliang. However, it had now appeared before his eyes. This also meant that Zhuowen would definitely have a place among the 5 ancient inheritances. Lord Gu. It seems that Zhuowen of Rotten Armor City will also have an ancient inheritance. It seems that I need to congratulate you. Suddenly, Lu Nantian clasped his hands towards Gu Yutian in an uncharacteristic manner. There was a spring breeze smile on his face, as if he was facing a good friend of many years. Lu Nantian's performance had thoroughly shocked many of the surrounding people. Clearly, this Lu Nantian's attitude meant that he was truly planning to rope in Rotten Armor City and the peerless genius Zhuowen. Yes. Now, everyone had already regarded Zhuowen as a peerless genius. The most dazzling person in this year's Origin Qi Tower battle was undoubtedly this unknown genius from a low-level city, Zhuowen. At this moment, Su Chang's face was extremely gloomy. He silently took out the elixirs in his Qiankuan pouch. After suppressing Su Tianliang's injuries, Su Tianliang explained the ins and outs of the matter. Especially when he heard that Su Tianliang had used a treasure like the green binding jade token and that even Zhuowen had made a move, but still couldn't kill Zhuowen, Su Chang's eyelids twitched. He felt more and more threatened by Zhuowen. After instructing the servants to take Su Tianliang away to rest, Su Chang's face suddenly became extremely calm. He once again ascended the high platform, as if Su Tianliang's elimination didn't affect him at all. On the high platform, everyone, including Lu Nantian, tacitly didn't ask anything. They all knew that although Su Chang looked extremely calm on the surface, his heart wasn't as calm as it appeared. The silence on the high platform didn't last for long. Su Chang suddenly turned his head and said to Xianyuanli, "Brother Xianyuan, just now, Tianliang told me that not only did that little bastard Zhuowen take the initiative to provoke Tianliang, he even recklessly provoked your Imperial Sword School's Zhu Qi. This child's ambition is extremely great. He wants to occupy 2 inheritances by himself." When Su Chang said this, Xianyuanli frowned and said in surprise, "Provoke Zhu Qi? I remember that Zhuowen and Zhu Qi don't have any grudges, right? Moreover, it's enough that this child has obtained 1 inheritance. There's no need for him to take the extra step of fighting for another inheritance. After all, in the land of inheritance, each person can only obtain 1 ancient inheritance. He. That little bastard Zhuowen is arrogant and conceited. It's not impossible for him to provoke Zhu Qi for no reason. Su Chang shook his head and said in confusion. Su Chang's words also made Xian Yuanli frown. However, he shook his head and said indifferently, so what if Zhuowen provoked Zhu Qi? Zhu Qi is much stronger than Zhuowen. It's impossible for Zhuowen to win. Xian Yuanli was very confident in Zhu Qi. He knew that Zhu Qi's cultivation had reached the mid-stage of the four-wheel emperor realm. In the entire province, the only people who could defeat Zhu Qi were Lve Tao of the House of Marquis Qin and Luo Xing of the Jade Lady Star Court. As for Zhuowen, although Zhuowen's potential was amazing, he would only be defeated if he went up against Zhu Qi. The other people on the high platform also heard the conversation between Su Chang and Xian Yuanli. They couldn't help but shake their heads. Obviously, they didn't think highly of Zhuowen's provocation of Zhu Qi, or perhaps, they thought it was a foolish action. Guyu Tian frowned slightly and a trace of worry appeared on his face. He had heard a little about Zhu Qi's strength. He was a genius who was only second to Lve Tao. If it wasn't for Luo Xing, he might be the second genius now. Whoosh! The crowd didn't have to wait for too long. Another beam of light shot out from the Yuanqi Tower and landed at the bottom of the tower. Then, everyone's gazes converged on this beam of light again. In particular, the 9 people on the high platform stared closely at the beam of light. They knew that it was very likely that either Zhuowen or Zhu Qi was behind the beam of light. It's definitely Zhuowen. No matter how heaven-defying that Zhuowen is, it's impossible for him to be the opponent of an ultimate king realm cultivator with 4 wheels, Su Chang said calmly. However, there was a pair of cold eyes in his eyes. Zhuowen had first killed his second son, Su Liang, in the dark forest, and even eliminated Su Tianliang from the legacy grounds. As a result, the Marquis of Baichuan's estate was unable to obtain a single legacy. As a result, the enmity between them was huge. It was even to the extent that Su Chang was already silently planning in his heart. After Zhuowen appeared later, he would seize the opportunity when Lu Nantian and the others weren't paying attention to directly kill Zhuowen, and he wouldn't hesitate even if he would be cursed by others. Xian Yuanli's gaze was also fixed on the light pillar. He did not know why, but the figure in the light pillar gave him a familiar feeling. A strange, ominous feeling crept into his heart, causing him to feel suffocated. The beam of light receded, and a miserable figure with disheveled hair slowly appeared before everyone's eyes. The moment the figure appeared at the bottom of the tower, a mist of blood spurted out from his wounds. Afterwards, the figure spat out a mouthful of blood and slowly fell to the ground. Zhuowen. I, Zhu Qi, will not let this go. The moment he fell, Zhu Qi finally shouted out a hoarse voice. Bang! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground slowly reverberated across the somewhat quiet square. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone was stunned as they stared at the figure that had fallen to the ground amidst the bloody mist. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. This figure was actually one of the 5 super geniuses, the genius of the Imperial Sword Sect, Zhu Qi, whose strength was even greater than Su Tianliang's. He was a genuine ultimate king realm expert with 4 wheels, but he had actually fallen to such a miserable state. Zhuowen again. How did Zhuowen do it? He defeated 2 super geniuses in a row. Su Tianliang was defeated by him, and even the stronger Zhu Qi was defeated. This is truly heaven-defying. Zhuowen's strength has really reached such a level. Even Zhu Qi was beaten to such a state. Isn't this too terrifying? Chapter 556. A pillar of blood soared to the sky. At this moment, not only were the people in the plaza stunned, even the leaders of the 5 super factions on the high platform had their mouths agape, their faces filled with disbelief. Especially Su Chang, the shock on his face was even more intense than everyone else's, nearly causing him to cry out in surprise. Swoosh! Carrying a long sword on his back, Xian Yuanli instantly arrived in front of Zhu Qi. He extended his right hand and felt Zhu Qi's pulse, his brows slightly knitted together. He had not expected Zhu Qi's injuries to be so serious. After muttering to himself for a while, Xian Yuanli's right hand clawed onto Zhu Qi's chest. Immediately, surging yuan power continuously flowed into Zhu Qi's body, causing the originally deathly pale Zhu Qi's complexion to improve slightly. However, he was still in a state of deep unconsciousness. Seeing Zhu Qi in such a state, Xian Yuanli's brows tightly knitted together. With a wave of his right hand, surging waves of energy immediately wrapped around Zhu Qi, causing him to float beside him. Xian Yuanli cupped his hands towards Lu Nantian and the rest on the high platform, solemnly saying, "Everyone, I'm sorry. Zhu Qi's injuries are too serious, I must bring him back to the sect for treatment. I'm afraid I won't be able to participate in the following Yuan Energy Tower battle." Xian Yuanli's words caused the surrounding people to be shocked. It seemed that Zhu Qi's injuries were truly very serious, or else it would not have caused Xian Yuanli to be so wary and solemn. At the same time, a trace of respect and fear rose in many people's hearts towards Zhuowen. Although he was of humble birth, his talent was extremely high, and his temperament was truly decisive and ruthless. Su Tianliang and Zhu Qi, these two great geniuses, had actually been injured to such an extent. It had to be said that this Zhuowen was truly audacious. Was he not afraid of the revenge of these two super factions? On the high platform, Lu Nantian nodded and said, "Since this is the case, Brother Xian Yuan can leave. After all, saving lives is more important." Xian Yuanli nodded and wrapped Zhu Qi with his power. With a tap of his right hand, the sword on his back flew out of its scabbard and became 10 feet long. Then, he took the two of them and flew up on the sword, disappearing from where they were. Su Tianliang and Zhu Qi have both been eliminated. In that case, one of the inheritances should belong to none other than Zhuowen. In that case, the last inheritance should be the competition between Qing Lian, Ling Wushuang, Qing Hu, and Luo Yao. Looking at the 8 names still lit up on the light screen, LV Nanshan's eyes stared straight at Zhuowen's name. He was extremely curious about this unknown youth. How did this child grow to such a level? Boom! Suddenly, 2 pillars of light rose from the Vitality Tower. 2 figures appeared in front of everyone. They were Qinghu and Luo Yao. After being defeated by Ling Wushuang, they had no choice but to leave the land of inheritance. At this point, there were only 6 people left in the land of inheritance. They were Lve Tao, Luo Xing, Qin Badian, Zhuowen, Ling Wushuang and Qing Lian. The appearance of Qinghu and Luo Yao did not attract the slightest bit of attention. Their strength was originally at the bottom of the 10 people. It would be strange if they could obtain an ancient inheritance. The name list of the ancient inheritances will be out soon. I wonder how many of the 5 ancient inheritances that appeared in the land of inheritance belong to the heaven stage sections. Lu Nantian looked at the 6 names on the screen with burning eyes. The heaven stage sects were extremely powerful in the ancient era. Just one of them could directly destroy the current Qing Xian Empire. The others were also looking forward to what kind of inheritance the remaining people would obtain. They knew that the results would be out soon. Everyone did not have to wait for too long. Suddenly, a golden light shone behind Lve Tao's name on the screen. Soon after, a row of golden words began to appear. Lve Tao, Tiangang Sect, Ancient Heaven Stage Sect. Congratulations, congratulations. Brother Lv, your Lve Tao has indeed lived up to everyone's expectations and obtained the Heaven Stage Sect's inheritance. The moment this row of words appeared, everyone on the high platform congratulated Lu Nantian. Their words were full of envy. Lu Nantian also secretly sighed in relief. Although he knew that it would not be difficult for Lve Tao to obtain the Heaven Stage Sect's inheritance, he was still not that confident and certain in his heart. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, he naturally felt a lot more relaxed. Many thanks for everyone's praise. The second person to obtain the inheritance will soon appear. Lu Nantian also happily returned the greetings and said with a smile. Just as Lu Nantian said, the first row of words did not appear for long. The second row of words flickered below, and another row of words appeared. Fallen Star, Jade Lake Immortal Park, Ancient Heaven Stage Sect. A brilliant and enchanting smile immediately surfaced on the Falling Star Garden Master's pretty face the instant this line of information appeared. She too did not expect that a second heavenly sect would appear in the inheritance land within the Yuan Energy Tower this time. Moreover, it was obtained by Luo Xing. This naturally caused her to be extremely happy in her heart. Sister Fallen Star, your Jade Lady Star Court's Fallen Star is indeed worthy of being the second genius of Muqin County. She actually obtained the Heaven Stage Sect's inheritance. It seems that her fortune is not shallow. Lu Nantian laughed and congratulated the master of the meteorite. Naturally, the others were also full of envy and congratulated the master of the meteorite, causing the master of the meteorite to chuckle non-stop. Her face was no longer as cold as usual. After Fallen Star was Qin Batian, Barbarian Mountain Sect, Ancient Earth Stage Sect. Although it was only an Earth Stage Sect, Marquis Yongxing Qin Nye was already quite satisfied. Moreover, after this row of words appeared, Qin Nye's gaze faintly fell on Su Chang, who was not far away with an ugly expression. Thinking of Su Tianliang of Baichuan Marquis Mansion being eliminated early, Qin Nye was secretly delighted. After all, the relationship between Yongxing Mansion and Baichuan Marquis Mansion was not very good, and there were often some small conflicts. Now that he saw Su Chang suffer, Qin Nye was naturally gloating. Su Chang also felt the faintly discernible mocking expression on Qin Nye's face. His mood became even worse, and the hatred he had for Zhuo Wen in his heart grew even thicker. If it wasn't for that damned Zhuo Wen, how could Su Tianliang have been eliminated? Now, he didn't even get an ancient inheritance. Not long after Qin Baishan's words appeared, the ownership of the fourth ancient inheritance was also displayed on the light screen. Clear Lotus, Wind Sword Sect, Ancient Earth Stage Sect. When Clear Lotus' name finally appeared, whether it was the master of the meteorite or the others, they couldn't help but be stunned. It's actually Clear Lotus of the Jade Lady Star Court. I remember that Clear Lotus is only at the Ultimate Emperor stage. How could she obtain an ancient inheritance? Seeing that Clear Lotus had also obtained an ancient inheritance, Su Chang's face became more and more unsightly, and he coldly snorted. The master of the meteorite didn't care about Su Chang's sarcastic words. There was also a trace of doubt on her face. In her opinion, it was already quite amazing that Clear Lotus could enter the ancient inheritance land. Now that she had obtained an ancient inheritance, this news really shocked her. Could it be that Zhuowen voluntarily gave up an ancient inheritance to Clear Lotus? I remember that Clear Lotus of your Jade Lady Star Court has a good relationship with Zhuowen. Lu Nantian suddenly interjected. Hearing this, the master of the meteorite felt relieved. After Clear Lotus returned from the ancient cavern mansion, she had done a lot of things for Zhuowen. Moreover, before the opening of the Vitality Tower, she had also come forward to help Zhuowen. In fact, she had always known about these things, but at that time, she thought it was just a small matter between the younger generation, so she didn't care. But now, it seemed that Zhuowen was a person who knew how to repay kindness. She didn't expect that he would directly give an ancient inheritance to Clear Lotus. This made the master of the meteorite have a good impression of Zhuowen. There is still the last ancient inheritance. If there is no accident, it should be Zhuowen's. Lu Nantian stared at the light screen and smiled. It's definitely young friend Zhuowen. With the strength that young friend Zhuowen has displayed, apart from Lve Tao and Luo Xing, it's really impossible for anyone else to have the strength to contend against him, said the master of Meteorite Garden with a delicate smile. After confirming that Clear Lotus's inheritance was given up by Zhuowen, the master of the meteorite couldn't help but speak for Zhuowen. This should be the so-called love me, love my dog. The other people on the high platform had no objection. Zhuowen's strength had already been recognized by them, and even exceeded their expectations. It was naturally not difficult for him to obtain an ancient inheritance. Under the expectant gazes of many people, the owner of the fifth ancient inheritance gradually appeared on the light screen. Ling Wushuang, Carefree Manor, Ancient Earth Step Sect. When this line of information was finally displayed on the light screen, whether it was the platform or the surrounding square, it instantly became incomparably silent. Everyone was stunned. This was because the owner of the last ancient inheritance was actually not Zhuowen, but Ling Tian City's Ling Wushuang. There was such a huge contrast between their guesses and reality that many people couldn't even react. It's actually Ling Wushuang. That Zhuowen. He's a fierce person who defeated Su Tianliang and Zhu Qi. How could he not be able to win against Ling Wushuang? Could it be that Zhuowen was heavily injured in the battle with Su Tianliang and Zhu Qi, and Ling Wushuang took advantage of the situation? That's possible. No matter how heaven-defying Zhuowen is, he should have been injured after continuously battling Su Tianliang and Zhu Qi. Ling Wushuang's strength isn't weak either, so it's not impossible for him to defeat an injured Zhuowen. Instantly, the surrounding area continuously became noisy. Many people made their own guesses. They all thought that Zhuowen was heavily injured and unable to continue fighting, so Ling Wushuang took advantage of him. Among them, the happiest person was undoubtedly the lord of Ling Tian City, Ling Tian. Originally, he didn't have much hope that Ling Wushuang would obtain the ancient inheritance, but this result made him so excited that he was speechless. What a pity. That Zhuowen's really unlucky. He's clearly strong enough, but because of this, he ended up benefiting someone else. Just thinking about it makes me feel that it's not worth it for him. Many people in the crowd sighed. They knew that when the last ancient inheritance didn't display Zhuowen's name, it meant that Zhuowen's legend had come to an end. Boom! Just as many people were shaking their heads in pity, a blood-red pillar of light suddenly shot into the sky from the top of the Origin Qi Tower. The sky was instantly dyed a terrifying blood red, and at a glance, it looked like a sea of blood. Following this, everyone was shocked to discover that a blood-red line of words slowly appeared on the light screen, appearing before everyone's eyes like wriggling blood vessels. Chapter 557. The Headless Giant. The Blood Demon Inheritance. Zhuowen actually chose the Blood Demon Inheritance. The instant the blood-colored light pillar erupted, the light screen also showed that Zhuowen had chosen the Blood Demon Inheritance. It was the most mysterious, dangerous, and terrifying inheritance in the Inheritance Land. Uproar, clamor, and exclamations erupted from the crowd. No one had expected that Zhuowen would choose the Blood Demon Inheritance in the end. In the eyes of many people, Zhuowen was simply insane. This Zhuowen chose the Blood Demon Inheritance? Lu Nantian couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He stared at the blood-colored light pillar in a daze, his gaze extremely complicated. He remembered that 100 years ago, such a tragic blood-colored light pillar had also appeared. At that time, his most revered big brother, Lu Hantian, had chosen the Blood Demon Inheritance without hesitation. How could the scene at that time be similar to what he was seeing now? Zhuowen is too impulsive. The Blood Demon Inheritance is so dangerous, yet he actually dared to choose it. Isn't he courting death? The master of the meteorite and Qin Nye both frowned. The two of them had a good impression of Zhuowen. Seeing that Zhuowen was courting death by choosing the Blood Demon Inheritance, they couldn't help but feel pity. Even Su Chang, who had the worst relationship with Zhuowen, was astonished by Zhuowen's choice. Soon after, ecstasy appeared on his face as he inwardly said, "Zhuowen, you're courting death. Looks like I don't need to do anything. A bastard like you will also die." The outside of the Yuan Qi Tower was in an uproar, but the inheritance grounds within the Yuan Qi Tower were incomparably silent. The 5 ancient inheritances that stood in the core area actually began to tremble the instant the Blood Demon Inheritance erupted with a bloody light. It was as if the blood demon inheritance was something extremely terrifying to them. When Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes, he discovered that what entered his eyes was an endless sea of blood. A dense smell of blood entered his nostrils as if it was real. Around the sea of blood stood 8 blood mountains that were several thousand feet tall. Each blood mountain was enough for Zhuowen to look up. And Zhuowen was in the middle of the 8 blood mountains. This should be the trial space of the blood demon inheritance land, right? Even Zhuowen couldn't help but frown as he smelled the pungent smell of blood coming from the surroundings. The environment faintly gave him a strong sense of threat, as if he had encountered a natural enemy, which made him extremely uncomfortable. Brat! Be careful. Since this blood demon inheritance land is known as the most terrifying inheritance in the inheritance land, it shouldn't be a baseless rumor. Although your strength is not bad, you still can't compare to the number 1 Heaven's Pride of Muqin County, Lu Hantian, 100 years ago. So be careful. A black light swept out from between Zhuowen's eyebrows, revealing the figure of Xiao He. At this moment, Xiao He's expression was extremely solemn. Facing the blood demon inheritance land, even Xiao He had to be cautious. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded and said, "The owner of the bronze coffin once left a message. There are a total of 18 trials in the blood demon inheritance land. However, I only need to pass the first 8 trials. Then, I can rely on the blood demon token to directly enter the core area to receive the inheritance. Although that's the case, you still have to be careful." At this point, a trace of hesitation appeared on Xiao He's face. It felt that there were many loopholes in the message left by the owner of the bronze coffin. However, after thinking about it carefully, it felt that it was reasonable. Maybe I'm thinking too much. Xiao He shook its head and mocked itself in its heart. It then stood on Zhuowen's shoulder and began to silently guard its surroundings. Boom! After entering this trial space, Zhuowen no longer held back his trump cards. He directly took out the huge bronze coffin. Puppet Bai Lin slowly walked out of the coffin. Its posture was elegant and its expression was calm. "Greetings, Master." After coming out, Bai Lin respectfully bowed to Zhuowen. "Bai Lin, help me guard the surroundings. This is not a friendly place." After giving Bai Lin a few instructions, Zhuowen began to carefully observe the surrounding environment. In this land of Blood Sea, the only landmark buildings were the 8 surrounding blood mountains. Other than that, whether it was the sky or the ground, it was basically covered by the endless Blood Sea. What a strange place. I'm afraid this place should be the first stage of the blood demon inheritance. Holding the tyrannical dragon scale bone spear in his right hand and the shrunken bronze coffin in his left, Zhuowen's expression was extremely cautious. Although the bronze coffin was only an auxiliary heaven-rank spiritual treasure, its material was extremely sturdy and far surpassed that of an earth-rank spiritual treasure. It was extremely suitable to be used as a shield for defense. At the same time, Bai Lin surrounded Zhuowen with a guarded expression. It was like a conscientious bodyguard protecting Zhuowen. As long as there was any movement, Bai Lin would immediately block the danger for Zhuowen. Boom! 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 Suddenly, an earth-shattering vibration surged out from under Zhuowen's feet. Cracks like a spider web almost spread out under Zhuowen's feet. Then, Zhuowen was shocked to discover that the 8 blood mountains around him were moving in an extremely orderly manner. The blood-colored walls on the surface of the blood mountains had completely peeled off, revealing their true appearance. As the blood-colored walls peeled off, Zhuowen discovered that there were 8 giants standing on the blood mountains. The blood-colored giants had no heads and bodies. They held blood-colored giant axes in both hands. It was as if they were splitting the heavens and earth apart. They walked forward and slowly gathered around Zhuowen. "Kid! Be careful. These 8 headless giants have the strength of a mid-ultimate emperor stage 3 wheel. If 8 of them work together, even you will find it difficult to deal with them," Xiao He said with a serious expression. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded and said to Bai Lin beside him, Bai Lin, go deal with the 5 headless giants on the left. With your strength, you should be able to handle them. Master, don't worry. Bai Lin nodded and turned into a bolt of white lightning, sweeping towards the 5 headless giants on the left. Zhuowen still trusted Bai Lin's strength. This was a puppet that had the strength of a peak ultimate emperor stage cultivator. Its strength was even greater than his own. It should be able to deal with 5 peak ultimate emperor stage 3-wheel headless giants. As long as I get rid of the 3 headless giants in front of me, I'll be able to pass this stage. Seeing the 3 headless giants striding towards him from the right, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with battle intent. His right hand tightened around the handle of his spear. With a stomp of his foot, his entire body turned into a bolt of lightning. Roar! Seeing that a tiny ant like Zhuowen had actually taken the initiative to provoke them, the 3 headless giants roared furiously. Their powerful strength borrowed the power of the air, forming a dense ring of sound waves that blasted towards the tiny human who dared to provoke them. Zhuowen also noticed the power of the sound waves above his head. His eyes narrowed slightly as he swung the tyrannical dragon-scale bone spear in his right hand. He immediately used the defensive technique, Crouching Dragon. Instantly, hundreds of huge illusory dragons revolved around Zhuowen's body. Bang! 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 The 3 headless giants' sound wave attacks were rather powerful. When they blasted against the illusory dragons, they actually showed signs of collapsing. Fortunately, the crouching dragon was powerful enough. Coupled with Zhuowen's freakishly strong physical body, he was able to block the attack in the end. Whoosh! After blocking the impact of the sound waves, Zhuowen instantly arrived beside the nearest headless giant. He swung the bone spear in his hand. The sharp tip of the spear pierced through the air and pierced the giant's chest. Clang! The crisp sound of metal clashing could be heard. Zhuowen was shocked to discover that the headless giant's defense was so strong that even his tyrannical dragon-scale bone spear couldn't pierce through it. Roar! Zhuowen's actions had completely enraged the headless giant. The headless giant roared furiously as it swung its blood-red axe at Zhuowen, who was in front of its chest. At the same time, the other 2 headless giants had also arrived. 2 blood-red axes mercilessly swung at Zhuowen. The air was filled with a tragic whooshing sound. Feeling the immense power of the 3 axes, Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He raised his left hand that was holding the bronze coffin to block. Suddenly, a green light burst out and the bronze coffin expanded to several feet, protecting Zhuowen. Boom! 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 The 3 axes bombarded the bronze coffin, causing countless sparks to fly. However, to Zhuowen's delight, the axes couldn't leave a single mark on the surface of the bronze coffin. Thump! 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 The powerful recoil caused Zhuowen to retreat continuously. He looked at the 3 headless giants in front of him with a grave expression. Kid! The headless giant's body is even stronger than yours. It won't be easy to destroy its body. However, this dragon lord has already observed that the headless giant's weakness is on its headless neck. As long as you destroy the headless giant's neck, the headless giant will definitely die. A smile suddenly appeared on his shoulder as he suggested to Zhuowen. Nodding his head, Zhuowen also noticed that there was still a neck above the headless giant. His eyes narrowed slightly as he took a step forward and rushed towards the headless giant again. The tyrannical dragon-scale bone spear in his hand was ready to strike. Roar! Zhuowen rushed over again, which naturally made the 3 headless giants even more furious. They roared and swung the blood axes in their hands at Zhuowen. The powerful fluctuation caused the surrounding space to collapse. At that moment, Zhuowen's expression was extremely calm. When the 3 axes blocked his way forward, Zhuowen immediately used the ascending dragon style. The huge dragon head whizzed out and hit the 3 axes. Although it didn't break the axes, it caused the axes to deviate slightly. Good chance. Taking advantage of this moment, Zhuowen immediately spread out 2 pairs of lightning wings. His speed was almost at its limit as he rushed through the gaps between the 3 axes. In an instant, he arrived on the shoulder of the first headless giant. This time, you won't be able to dodge. With a grin, Zhuowen suddenly spun the bone spear in his right hand. Countless forces burst forth and pierced the neck of the headless giant. To Zhuowen's surprise, the bone spear easily pierced through the neck of the headless giant. It seemed that Xiao He was right. The neck of the headless giant was indeed its fatal weakness. Roar! Chapter 558. The ancient blood clan. The moment the bone spear pierced the headless giant's neck, Zhuowen poured all the energy within his body into the bone spear. Immediately, the powerful energy was like a meat grinder, directly turning the headless giant's insides to mush. Awoo! The headless giant wailed in agony as its body directly collapsed, turning into a rain of blood that rained down. It was mournful and bloody. The death of the first headless giant immediately caused the other 2 giants to wail in agony. They began to charge at Zhuowen without any regard for their lives. They had to kill this despicable human cultivator before them. Unfortunately, since Zhuowen had already grasped the weakness of the headless giants, the fate of these 2 giants was already destined to fall. Boom! Boom! With a flash of lightning, Zhuowen directly passed by the 2 giants. The bone spear in his hand accurately struck the necks of the 2 headless giants. Then, the 2 headless giants collapsed to the ground, their auras completely gone. After dealing with the 3 headless giants, Zhuowen began to notice that Bai Lin on his left had already finished his battle. He was standing nearby, waiting silently. Seeing that Zhuowen had also finished his battle, Bai Lin's figure flashed, and he arrived behind Zhuowen like the most loyal guard. When Zhuowen's gaze landed on the battlefield on his left, he could not help but gasp. Not a single one of the 5 headless giant corpses was intact. Countless chunks of flesh were scattered all over the ground, making it seem like a slaughterhouse. Moreover, from the looks of the battlefield, Bai Lin did not find the headless giant's weakness like Zhuowen at all. Instead, he tore them apart forcefully. Zhuowen knew very well how tough the bodies of the headless giants were. However, Bai Lin was actually able to tear apart the headless giants so easily. His battle prowess was probably even greater than Zhuowen had expected. The ultimate 5-wheel emperor Bai Lin is indeed powerful. Zhuowen nodded as he took a deep look at the bloody battlefield on his left. Swish! After the 8 headless giants were all killed, the surrounding sea of blood suddenly trembled. Soon after, a blood-red whirlpool appeared in the air above the empty space. It looked deep and eerie. This should be the entrance to the next stage. Let's go in. Xiao He, who was on his shoulder, said calmly. Zhuowen nodded when he heard this, and then he took a step forward and directly entered the blood-colored vortex. Time slowly passed. Zhuowen had already stayed in the Blood Demon Inheritance Land for 7 days. During these 7 days, he had basically been challenging the remaining stages. It had to be said that the trials of the Blood Demon's Land of Inheritance were extremely terrifying. The first 5 trials were still alright. With the white phosphorus and the bronze coffin, Zhuowen passed through them rather easily. However, the difficulty of the 6th and 7th stages exceeded Zhuowen's expectations. The traps and creatures that appeared in these 2 stages were extremely frightening. Even with his many trump cards, Zhuowen had nearly gotten himself seriously injured. This was a huge blood mountain. At the top of the blood mountain, a slender figure was sitting cross-legged. A strange bone spear was stuck in the ground beside him. This person was Zhuowen, who was in the Blood Demon's Land of Inheritance. At this moment, Zhuowen's appearance was rather miserable. His clothes were tattered, and his exposed skin was riddled with scars and dripping with blood. He looked extremely terrifying and hideous. Slowly opening his eyes, Zhuowen's eyes glowed. He looked up at the blood-red whirlpool in the air and said, I never thought that the 7th stage of the Blood Demon's land of inheritance would be so difficult. I wonder what the 8th stage will be like. I'm afraid that the 8th stage will be even more terrifying. You should be careful. This is already the last stage. If you can break through this last stage, you can directly use the Blood Demon token to enter the core area of the Blood Demon's land of inheritance. At that time, your chances of obtaining the Blood Demon's inheritance will be very high. Xiao He suddenly said. Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes blazed. Since the Blood Demon's land of inheritance was known as the most powerful inheritance in the Yuanqi Tower, there should be a lot of good things inside. Zhuowen was looking forward to this inheritance more and more. Let's go. I want to see how difficult the last stage will be. Slowly getting up, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. He held the spear in his right hand and the bronze coffin in his left hand. Bai Lin was also waiting around him, ready to attack. With a step, Zhuowen did not hesitate for long and directly entered the blood-red whirlpool. The feeling of traveling through time and space flashed in Zhuowen's mind. Then, he realized that the scenery in front of him had changed. This was an endless desert. Blood sand filled the sky everywhere. In the blood-red sky, there was a lonely blood moon hanging alone. Everything looked so strange and dilapidated. There seems to be something in front. Go and take a look. Xiao He on his shoulder suddenly said. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. With a step, he directly rushed forward. After about half an hour, a somewhat dilapidated blood-red stone hall appeared in front of Zhuowen's eyes. The cornerstone on the surface of the stone hall had been broken and shattered. It looked like it could collapse at any time. At the front of the stone hall stood a stone tablet that was dozens of feet wide. On the stone tablet, there were vague words. However, due to the erosion of time, these words were basically unrecognizable. I'm afraid this stone hall is not a good place. Kid, be careful. Xiao He cautioned. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. He tightened his grip on the weapon in his hand and slowly walked into the stone hall. What surprised Zhuowen was that the stone hall looked dilapidated from the outside, as if it was about to collapse. However, the inside was quite neat and clean. It did not have the dilapidated aura from the outside. On the stone pillars at both ends of the stone hall, there were dim yellow lamps hanging from them. The dim light made the deep stone hall appear even more sinister and strange. Dang dang dang. Only the crisp sound of Zhuowen's feet touching the ground could be heard in the silent stone hall. It faintly reverberated, and even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. What a strange stone hall. There are clearly lamps lit all around the stone hall, but it seems so quiet. It is as if no one has ever been inside. Zhuowen could not help but mutter as he vigilantly scanned his surroundings. At this moment, Xiao He on Zhuowen's shoulder was concentrating on releasing its divine sense in an attempt to spy on the inside of the stone hall. However, what surprised it was that there seemed to be an extremely powerful restriction in the stone hall that could actually block the probing of its divine sense. Kid, be careful. This stone hall can actually block this Dragon Lord's divine sense. From now on, this Dragon Lord will not be able to help you. You better be careful. Xiao He on his shoulder said with a grave expression. Hearing this, Zhuowen was shocked. He did not expect that there would actually be a restriction in the stone hall that could block out divine sense. Even Xiao He's divine sense was useless against it. This faintly made Zhuowen feel a trace of an ominous premonition. Zhuowen was the only one in the enormous stone hall. All he could hear was his own footsteps. Such a strange atmosphere caused Zhuowen to involuntarily feel goosebumps all over his body, causing him to feel a chill run down his spine. After walking through a long corridor, Zhuowen finally arrived at the main hall. The main hall was rather large. The area covered by the lamps was at least 100 feet wide. As for the other areas, Zhuowen could not make any guesses due to the pitch-black darkness. At the end of the main hall, there was a huge throne. The throne was completely blood-red, and there were two large skulls hanging on both sides of the armrests. Their dark, empty eyes were staring straight at Zhuowen. It was a very strange sight. As he walked closer, Zhuowen discovered that the blood-red throne was actually built from the huge skeleton of some kind of creature. Piles of white bones were cast. A dense smell of blood assaulted his nostrils, causing Zhuowen to involuntarily frown. At this moment, a majestic figure in blood-red armor sat quietly on the blood-red throne. His right elbow was resting on the skull on the armrest. His left hand was stroking his chin as if he was thinking about something. He was completely unaware of Zhuowen's arrival. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed as he looked at the figure in blood-red armor on the throne. The figure in blood-red armor was not human. Just sitting there, it was already over 30 feet tall. If it stood up, it would probably be over 10 feet tall. What made Zhuowen even more fearful was that the aura that the figure in blood-red armor gave off was extremely terrifying. It actually faintly suppressed Bai Lin behind him. The figure in blood-red armor was probably even stronger than Bai Lin. Thinking of this, Zhuowen became even more fearful. He could not help but tighten his grip on the weapon in his hand. The figure in blood-red armor in front of him gave him too much pressure. He could not afford to be careless in the slightest. Xiao He. Do you know what this guy is? The aura on his body is very terrifying. I feel that it will be very difficult to fight him. Suddenly, Zhuowen softly asked Xiao He who was on his shoulder. This is the ancient blood clan. They were an extremely famous race in the ancient times. In the ancient times, their numbers were extremely large. They even outnumbered humans by a lot. Back then, they were also much stronger than humans. The ancient blood clan took orders from the blood demon. They were the blood demon's most loyal servants, Xiao He said softly. Ancient blood clan. His brows furrowed. Although he did not know the origins of the ancient blood clan, it was not difficult to deduce from Xiao He's words that the ancient blood clan should have been an extremely terrifying race in the ancient times. How strong is this ancient blood clan? Do we have any hope of dealing with it? Zhuowen softly asked the most pressing question in his heart. The ancient blood clan loves to drink human blood the most. The ancient blood clan in front of us is probably comparable to an ultimate 5-wheel emperor realm cultivator. As for how strong it is, even I can't tell at the moment, Xiao He said gravely. Clang! Suddenly, the figure in blood-red armor who was originally sitting on the blood-red throne stood up. The figure in blood-red armor was wearing a mask, so Zhuowen could not see the creature's true appearance. He could only see a pair of scarlet eyes staring at him. Chapter 559. Ugly and Narcissistic Thud. Thud. Perhaps to the blood-armored creature, the human warrior in front of it was nothing more than a feast. I haven't tasted human blood for a long time. I've almost forgotten how blood tastes like. Brat, you've come at the right time. I've decided to let you die painlessly. This is my reward for you. Ha! Soon, the blood-armored creature was 3 meters away from Zhuowen. Its gigantic body was like a small mountain compared to Zhuowen. It looked down at the human below it greedily. The blood-armored creature's right hand, which had sharp claws, slowly reached for Zhuowen's head. It liked to twist off human heads and drink the blood that gushed out. It was a wonderful feeling. However, it soon realized that its sharp claws had grabbed empty air. The human in front of it had somehow dodged its claws at lightning speed. How dare a mere member of the ancient blood clan speak so arrogantly? Even if the blood demon was here today, he wouldn't have the right to make me, Zhuowen, stand there obediently and accept my death. Who do you think you are? How dare you speak so arrogantly? A cold smile appeared on Zhuowen's face. The tyrannical dragon-scale bone spear in his right hand had already pierced through the void at a critical moment. He suddenly swept towards the blood-armored creature's head and directly struck its mask. Bang! The blood-armored creature didn't expect Zhuo Wen to suddenly attack, and the bone spear struck its mask. The sound of metal clashing against metal rang out, and the blood-armored creature's mask was instantly shattered, revealing its hideous face. Seeing the face behind the blood-armored creature's mask, Zhuo Wen could not help but be stunned. He shivered for no reason because the blood-armored creature's face was extremely ugly. Its face was red, and there were many red oval-shaped protrusions on its skin that almost covered its entire face. They were densely packed together, making it look extremely disgusting and horrifying. What an ugly creature! Stepping in the air, Zhuowen stared at the blood-armored creature's true appearance, and a look of disgust appeared on his face. This blood-armored creature was indeed too ugly. Even though Zhuowen had a good temperament, he could not help but feel nauseous. Ugly? Damned human, you actually dare to insult me like this. You should know that I'm a famous handsome man in the ancient blood clan. You, a brat who stinks of milk, actually dare to call me ugly? You're simply courting death. When the mask was broken, the blood-armored creature became furious, especially when it heard Zhuowen say that it was ugly. The blood-armored creature became even more irritable, and a dangerous arc appeared in its scarlet eyes. Damn it, how could it think of itself as a handsome man when it looked like that? There must be something wrong with its head. Hearing the narcissistic words of the blood-armored creature in front of him and looking at its disgusting face, Zhuowen really had the urge to kill this monster in front of him. It was not that he had never seen an ugly monster before, but it was the first time he had seen one of such a high quality. You damnable human, you'll pay for what you've done later. I'll definitely kill you later. The blood-armored creature cursed without any elegance. Then, under Zhuowen's strange gaze, it actually took out a blood-red mirror from its armor and pretended to look at itself. "Oh. This seat's handsome, unparalleled, soft and smooth skin was almost ruined by a damned human like you. Fortunately, you didn't cut this seat's skin. Otherwise, this seat would definitely teach you a lesson." Looking at itself in the mirror, the blood-armored creature actually said narcissistic words that made Zhuowen's stomach turn again. Fuck you. It's not your fault that you're ugly, but it's your fault that you're ugly and narcissistic. Get lost to hell as soon as possible. Zhuowen really could not stand the narcissistic words and actions of the blood-armored creature. Black lines appeared on his forehead as he attacked decisively. He could not guarantee that he would not lose his integrity if he continued watching. Whoosh! The blood-armored creature was quite alert. It stomped its foot and turned into a bloody shadow, dodging Zhuowen's attack. Then, the blood-red mirror in its right hand suddenly smashed towards Zhuowen's head. His brows furrowed slightly. The crimson-armored creature was quite powerful, and its reaction speed was quite fast. It was able to dodge his attack with ease, and it was even able to counterattack in a leisurely manner. Zhuowen held the bone spear with both hands and blocked the blood-red mirror that the blood-armored creature had thrown at him. With a dull sound of metal clashing, Zhuowen felt his hands sink. He grunted and involuntarily took a dozen steps back. What a rude human. How dare you sneak attack me? Looks like you'll really think I'm a freeloader if I don't teach you a lesson. The blood-armored creature narrowed its eyes as a trace of coldness appeared in its voice. Clearly, Zhuowen's actions had completely infuriated it. Boom! The blood-armored creature stomped its foot, and the powerful force almost directly cracked the ground. It immediately turned into a huge, bloody shadow that shot towards Zhuowen. Die for me. A fist that was about 10 feet in size mercilessly descended from the sky and smashed towards Zhuowen's head with a whooshing sound. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly when he sensed the powerful might in the creature's fist. This strike had completely surpassed the might of a 4-wheel Ultimate King Realm Cultivator. It had probably reached the level of a 5-wheel Ultimate King Realm Cultivator. With Shuo Wen's current strength, he would definitely pay a heavy price if he was struck by this strike. Countless shockwaves turned into spirals and spread in all directions. Bang! 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 Huge stone pillars collapsed one by one from the shockwaves of their battle. Almost half of the large hall was reduced to dust. It looked extremely desolate and run down. What a terrifying battle. This is already the 5th round of a battle between Ultimate Emperor Realm martial art practitioners. I can't interfere at all. A trace of shock appeared on Zhuowen's face as he watched the two figures fight in the center. The strength that the two of them displayed far exceeded his. Even an ordinary attack was comparable to his strongest attack. If he was swept into this battle, he would probably be severely injured even if he did not die. Kid. Bai Lin is at a disadvantage. That blood-armored creature is extremely powerful. I'm afraid that it is considered to be one of the most talented geniuses in the ancient blood clan. Its physical body is terrifyingly tough. Even Bai Lin is having a hard time dealing with it. Suddenly, Blackie said with a serious expression. What? Bai Lin is at a disadvantage? Zhuowen frowned when he heard this. Indeed, Bai Lin was retreating from the battle in the center. It seemed like he was losing his strength. Boom! One of the two figures who were fighting in the air was suddenly sent flying backward and crashed into the ground of the stone hall, forming a huge crater. The figure in the crater was Bai Lin in his white robes. At this moment, Bai Lin was in a sorry state. Hee hee. Human martial art practitioner, your body is indeed strong. However, compared to me, you are still far from it. Now, you should die. Chapter 560. The cowardly member of the blood clan in the deep pit, Bai Lin, stood up in a sorry state. Facing the blood axe in the sky, there was no fear on his face. He was originally a puppet and did not have any human emotions. Naturally, he did not feel the slightest bit of fear. Zhuowen, who was not far away, frowned slightly. The blood-armored creature's blood axe was indeed powerful. It was even more powerful than Bai Lin's. If Bai Lin was hit by it, he would probably be severely injured. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He threw the bronze coffin in his left hand away. Bai Lin was now a great help to him and he could not let him be destroyed just like that. After all, if he was destroyed, he would need a lot of time and resources to repair it. It would be extremely disadvantageous to him. A green light flashed and the bronze coffin suddenly appeared in front of Bai Lin. Then, the green light shone brightly and the bronze coffin expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. It grew from a few feet in size to a few hundred feet in size. It was like a pillar that supported the heavens. The blood-red axe swept through the air in a blood-red arc. The moment it appeared, it struck the bronze coffin viciously. Immediately, the blood-red and azure light surged through the entire hall, vaguely dividing the hall into two different regions. Countless bursts of air exploded in all directions. Clang! A crisp sound was heard. The blood axe, which was like a hot knife through butter, shattered into countless blood-red pieces the moment it hit the bronze coffin. What? What is this? How could it shatter my personal weapon? The blood-armored creature's mouth was slightly agape. It looked at the bronze coffin with fear in its eyes. The hardness of its blood axe was not weaker than an earthly soul treasure. Even if it wanted to shatter the blood axe, it would not be that easy. However, the blood axe had been shattered by the sudden appearance of this bronze coffin. This had truly shocked its teeth out. Humph. No matter what it is, since it dared to shatter my personal weapon, I will shatter it directly. The crimson-armored creature seemed to be a little stubborn. Seeing that its crimson axe had been destroyed, it immediately vented its anger on the bronze coffin below. Although the aura of the bronze coffin made it a little wary, it was still quite confident in its own power. Whoosh! The blood-armored creature took a step forward in the air, and its hand, which was covered with spikes, smashed downwards without hesitation. The powerful force almost caused the air to sizzle, and the surrounding space was distorted. Blood chi was boiling. Ah! What was going on? My hand. When the crimson-armored creature finally crashed into the bronze coffin, the sinister smile on its face slowly faded. It was replaced by intense fear, as if it had encountered the most terrifying thing in its life. This was because he discovered that not only was his strength unable to do anything to the strange bronze coffin in front of him, the green light on the surface of the coffin was like maggots that latched onto his arm. Waves of terrifying corrosive power spread out, and his right arm instantly disappeared without a trace. Whoosh! The crimson-armored creature let out a blood-curdling howl as it hurriedly escaped from the bronze coffin. Droplets of blood fell from the sky like cherry blossoms, creating a terrifying sight to behold. From the moment the crimson-armored creature came into contact with the bronze coffin to the moment it lost its arm, only half a breath had passed. Before Zhuoan could react, the crimson-armored creature had already lost an arm and retreated a few hundred meters away with a pained and horrified look on its face. This. Is the bronze coffin so powerful? It actually broke the crimson-armored creature's arm the moment it came into contact with it. Zhuo Wen's eyebrows furrowed slightly as a trace of astonishment surfaced on his face. Although the bronze coffin was a heavenly soul treasure, it was merely a support-type soul treasure. No matter how high the quality of such a soul treasure was, it was unlikely for its offensive power to be so incisive. After all, the crimson-armored creature was a powerful existence that could suppress Bai Lin in all aspects. However, it had lost an arm the moment it came into contact with the bronze coffin. Zhuoan was both surprised and delighted at this moment. It's not that the bronze coffin is powerful, but that the bronze coffin seems to be extremely effective against the ancient blood clan. It can be said that it's the nemesis of the blood clan. This is also why the unlucky blood clan member's arm was completely corroded when he came into contact with the coffin. And if it weren't for the fact that the blood clan member reacted quickly enough, it wouldn't have just lost an arm. Xiao He appeared on Zhuowen's shoulder at this moment with a sly smile on her face. A sliver of understanding appeared on Zhuowen's face when he heard that. Soon after, a sly smile similar to Xiao He appeared on his face. The man and dog looked at each other and smiled, before looking at the fearful crimson-armored creature with ill intentions. The crimson-armored creature seemed to sense their gazes. It turned around and immediately saw the man and dog staring at it from not too far away as they constantly sneered. In particular, Xiao He's smile was extremely lewd, to the point that the crimson-armored creature almost wanted to rush over and fuck it up. However, the crimson-armored creature held back in the end. After staunching the wound on its right arm, it coldly said to Xiao He, who was on Zhuowen's shoulder, "It's fine if human warriors laugh at me, but you, Xiao He, who came out of nowhere, actually dare to laugh at me. Do you believe that I won't roast you and eat dog meat?" Xiao He. Eat dog meat? When the crimson-armored creature spat out these two somewhat insulting words, the lewd smile on Xiao He's face froze on Zhuowen's shoulder. All of its fur stood on end, and a rare human-like expression of anger appeared on its tanned face. Fuck! This Lord Dragon is a supreme member of the Dragon Clan. How dare you, a mere member of the Blood Clan, treat this Lord Dragon like a black dog? This is unforgivable. Brat, give me the bronze coffin and fuck it up. Immediately, Xiao He became flustered and exasperated. Its eyes were filled with anger and indignation. Its little paw pointed at the huge crimson-armored creature in front of it and scolded it shamelessly. Its words were extremely vicious, and it basically used the crimson-armored creature's ugly flaws to criticize it. Fuck! A Xiao He dog actually dares to insult me. You must be tired of living. I will definitely kill you today and eat dog meat tonight. As if its sore spot had been poked, the crimson-armored creature roared angrily. With a stomp of its foot, it suddenly shot towards Zhuoan. Its angry roars continuously resounded throughout the stone hall. Seeing the crimson-armored creature rushing towards him, Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He immediately ordered Bai Lin, who was not far away, to throw the bronze coffin over. With a flash of green light, it immediately landed in Zhuowen's hand. At this moment, the bronze coffin had already shrunk back to its original size. It was held in Zhuowen's hand like a shield. Seeing the bronze coffin in Zhuowen's hand, the crimson-armored creature, who was originally charging towards him, immediately became terrified. It could not help but curse in its heart. It hurriedly turned around, wanting to get away from Zhuowen. "Brat! Don't let this bastard go. I must kill him today. How dare he call this Lord Dragon a dog? He must be tired of living." Xiao He shamelessly hooted on Zhuowen's shoulder. However, she sat calmly on Zhuowen's shoulder and did nothing. Without needing Xiao He's instructions, Zhuowen had already moved. He instantly caught up with the crimson-armored creature that had turned around. With a swing of his left hand, he threw the huge bronze coffin directly at the crimson-armored creature. Ah! With a shrill howl, the crimson-armored creature fell to the ground, crying for its parents. The ground cracked, and a huge crater that was tens of feet deep was created. In the middle of the crater, the crimson-armored creature's back had already been corroded, and there was a huge hole in it. "Don't even think about escaping. You'll just die here today." Zhuowen's face was emotionless. Since he knew that the bronze coffin was so effective against this ancient member of the blood clan, Zhuowen naturally had to make good use of it. Without hesitation, he immediately rushed towards the crimson-armored creature. The bronze coffin that was ready to attack mercilessly attacked. Bang! 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 In just an hour, the crimson-armored creature in the stone hall had been hit by the bronze coffin nearly 30 times. It was extremely miserable every time. The crimson-armored creature's body had basically been corroded by the power of the bronze coffin. Many parts of its body were exposed, revealing skin that was covered in red spots. It looked extremely disgusting. At the same time, the crimson-armored creature's injuries were extremely severe. His skin was torn and his flesh was badly mangled. Green blood flowed continuously from his wounds, making him look extremely hideous and miserable. "Sirs, please spare my life. I shouldn't have offended Lord Dog just now. This lowly one has eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. I hope that the two sirs will let this lowly one off. This lowly one knows that the two sirs are planning to go to the 9th level. Don't worry, this lowly one will immediately open the path to the 9th level for the two sirs." Seeing that he was completely restrained by the bronze coffin, the crimson-armored creature knew that if he continued to fight, he would definitely die. Thus, he knelt down and begged for mercy. This fellow, seeing the crimson-armored creature kneeling down and begging for mercy so readily, Zhuowen and Xiao He couldn't help but be stunned. When this ancient member of the blood clan first appeared, he was so domineering and majestic. He looked like an expert. Now that he was defeated, he was begging for mercy so easily. The contrast between before and after was too great. "Brat! Let's just kill this member of the blood clan. Keeping this thing alive is also a disaster. Why don't we just send him to hell? That might be a good choice for him." Xiao He harumphed coldly. She hated the blood clan very much. "That's true. After killing you, the entrance to the 9th stage will automatically open. There's no use keeping you alive at all. So, you should just die." Nodding his head, Zhuowen's face grew colder. He slowly raised the bronze coffin in his hand and was about to kill the crimson-armored creature. "Don't kill me. I can provide you with some important information. I know that you want to enter the core area of the Blood Demon's inheritance land. However, there's already a human warrior guarding the core area. I'm afraid that you won't be able to get anything if you go in. If you let me go, I'm willing to tell you everything I know." As Zhuowen slowly raised the bronze coffin above his head, the crimson-armored creature finally couldn't stand the fear of death and told him the secret that he had never mentioned before. What? There's a human in the blood demon's inheritance land? How is that possible? Are you lying? Zhuowen's eyes flickered and suddenly became extremely cold. Chapter 561. SS Another Human. Xiao He. Can we believe what this guy says? After pondering for a moment, Zhuowen still wanted to ask for Xiao He's opinion. I'm not sure either. However, you have the bronze coffin that can suppress the blood clan. I don't think this little blood clan member will dare to do anything. It's not impossible for you to go to his cave abode, Xiao He said after thinking for a while. Zhuowen nodded when he heard this, and then he kicked the blood-armored being and said, "Lead the way. I still have to go to the core area of the blood demon's land of inheritance. Don't waste my time." Yes, yes. Don't worry, my residence is in this stone hall. We'll be there soon. The blood-armored creature heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Zhuowen was not going to kill him. He quickly put on a flattering smile and lowered his head. As he spoke, the blood-armored creature hurriedly went to the throne in front of him and chanted a few cryptic words. Suddenly, the blood-colored throne shattered, and a cave that was as tall as a person appeared underneath. It looked extremely deep and serene. "Just follow me, sirs." As he spoke, the blood-armored creature went into the cave. Zhuowen's eyes flickered and he followed him into the cave. The cave was not long. After a while, Zhuowen followed the blood-armored creature to the end. There was a rather spacious space at the end. There were many decorations inside and a huge bone bed sat in the middle of the space. This must be the blood-armored creature's bedroom. You really know how to enjoy life. You actually made such a place below the stone hall. Xiao He narrowed his eyes and sneered. The blood-armored creature's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. However, he quickly put on a flattering smile and said, "I've made a fool of myself in front of you. This is just a cave abode that I made in the past. It can avoid the surveillance of the one in the core area. This is also the reason why I brought you in." The one in the core area? Zhuowen immediately caught a hint of strangeness from the blood-armored creature's words. He quickly asked, "Is the one in the core area the soul of the blood demon?" You actually know that Lord Blood Demon is in the core area?" Zhuowen's sudden mention of the soul of the blood demon stunned the crimson-armored creature. It couldn't help but stutter. The fact that the blood devil's soul was hidden in the blood devil inheritance was a top secret. Aside from the creatures in the trial, it was impossible for outsiders to know about this secret. Otherwise, human experts would have already come to eliminate the blood devil's soul in the blood devil inheritance. The soul of the blood devil really exists in the core area? Tell me in detail about the blood devil's land of inheritance, and what's the deal with the humans you mentioned in the core area? After thinking for a moment, Zhuowen hurriedly asked. Now that its life was in Zhuowen's hands, the blood-armored creature didn't dare lie. It told him everything it knew about the blood demon legacy. Zhuowen and Xiao He's expressions darkened as they listened to the crimson-armored creature. It turned out that the blood devil's land of inheritance was just a cover. It was actually formed by the soul of the blood devil. It was said that 10,000 years ago, when the Vitality Tower was first built, it was used for the disciples of various sects to enter the trial. Its purpose wasn't much different from the current one. However, 10,000 years ago, there were specialized experts controlling the Vitality Tower to prevent the disciples from dying. It wasn't like now, where the cultivators' lives were basically up to the heavens. It could be said that it was extremely safe. However, for some reason, the blood devil that was supposed to be extinct suddenly appeared on the 4th floor of the Vitality Tower. It caused a huge massacre in the Vitality Tower. Almost all of the hundreds of thousands of disciples who entered the Vitality Tower died. Only a few managed to escape. It should be known that those who could enter the Vitality Tower to train were basically the elite disciples of various sections. Losing so many elite disciples with potential all at once infuriated countless sections one after another. They sent experts to encircle and annihilate Bloodseeker. Unfortunately, the primordial blood devils were extremely powerful, especially this one. Not only had its strength reached the peak of the Emperor realm, but the hundreds of thousands of sect disciples who had died in the Vitality Tower had all been turned into primordial blood devils. They were all under its control, and it took over the entire Vitality Tower. With the advantage of the Vitality Tower, even if the sect leaders of various sects and dozens of Emperor realm experts joined forces, they still couldn't break through the Vitality Tower. Instead, they suffered heavy casualties. 10,000 years ago, the Eastern Land was ruled by the Ryuka. Every Ryuka disciple could awaken a powerful dragon soul. Their combat strength was far beyond their peers. The Ryuka clan leader had even reached the Saint Realm. In the Eastern Land back then, he was an existence that countless sects respected. Therefore, the various sects had no choice but to ask the Ryuka clan leader for help. In the end, the Ryuka clan leader agreed to help. He only used one move to destroy the countless blood breeds in the Vitality Tower. Even the Blood Devil, whose strength had reached the peak of the Emperor realm, was severely injured by the Ryuka clan leader's move. His body was shattered, and only a wisp of his soul was left. However, the Blood Devil was extremely cunning and had a terrifying concealment technique. Therefore, everyone thought that the Blood Devil was dead. He didn't expect that such a person could make the Blood Clan, who hated humans, reveal such an expression. 100 years ago. Since he can't obtain the inheritance, why doesn't that person come out? Zhuowen asked in confusion. At the same time, he had already guessed who that person was. Although that person is extremely powerful and even the Blood Devil couldn't do anything to him, it's a pity that this space was created by the Blood Devil. If the Blood Devil doesn't want that person to come out, that person can't come out at all unless his strength reaches the Emperor realm. The blood-armored being shook his head. Hearing this, Zhuowen fell into deep thought. According to the blood-armored being, that person had entered the Blood Devil's inheritance 100 years ago. 100 years ago should be during the previous Vitality Tower battle, and there was only one prodigy who chose the Blood Devil's inheritance at that time. Could it be the number one prodigy in Muqin County, the one who defeated countless prodigies in Muqin County and caused quite a stir in the imperial capital county, Lu Hantian? Xiao He suddenly asked in confusion. Apart from Lu Hantian, I really can't think of anyone else. However, there are rumors that Lu Hantian died because of the Blood Devil's inheritance, right? Moreover, Lu Nantian once said that Lu Hantian had escaped from the Blood Devil's inheritance and brought out some of the Blood Devil's secret techniques and treasures. However, he died because of his injuries. Zhuowen looked at the blood-armored being with a flattering smile not far away, but his heart was filled with confusion. What the blood-armored being said was actually different from what Lu Nantian had said. Who was telling the truth? Kid. This Blood Clan member doesn't look like he's lying, and there's no need for him to lie. After all, if he says something wrong, he'll have to pay with his life, Xiao He suddenly said. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. He also felt that the blood-armored being didn't seem to be lying. However, there were still many suspicious points about Lu Hantian. It was likely that Lu Hantian had concealed a lot of things from Lu Nantian. Perhaps after entering the core area and seeing Lu Hantian in person, you should be able to find out the truth. Xiao He curled her lips. Yes. It's time to enter the core area. Hurry up and open the passage. Zhuowen nodded and suddenly pointed at the blood-armored being. Chapter 562. SS Thunder Dragon Wings. The blood-armored being hurriedly made a hand seal to open up the passage to the 9th level. He nodded and bowed to Zhuowen and Xiao He. Please take care. Zhuowen nodded and ignored the blood-armored creature. Just as he was about to leave, he caught a glimpse of the center of the cave from the corner of his eyes. He was stunned. Wait! The smile on the blood-armored being's face froze. He could not help but wail in his heart. What's wrong with this guy? If he wants to leave, then leave quickly. Why did he suddenly stop? My heart is about to jump out of my chest. Even though the crimson-armored creature was grumbling to himself, he still put on a warm and fawning smile as he said, "Please feel free to tell me what you need, and I'll do my best to accomplish it for you." Zhuowen did not care about the blood-armored being who was trying to curry favor with him. He took a step forward and arrived at the huge bed of bones in the center of the open space. His right hand shone with a golden light as he slammed it down. Instantly, the huge bed of bones shattered into pieces. The smile on the blood-armored being's face froze again. His eyelids twitched when he saw the bed of bones that had been turned into pieces. He almost cursed out loud, but when he saw the bronze coffin on Zhuowen's body, he held himself back in the end. He knew that if he really cursed out loud, the harmless-looking kid in front of him would definitely be the first to kill him. Hence, he cleverly remained silent. However, he was wailing in his heart. Where am I going to sleep in the future? Zhuowen waved his right hand, and a black shadow was sucked into his palm. At a glance, it was just an unremarkable piece of black iron. It looked very ordinary. This is... Could it be? At this moment, Xiaohei, who was on his shoulder, seemed to have noticed the uniqueness of the metal block. She could not help but exclaim. I can't be sure yet. Let me check it with my mental strength. Calming down the excitement in his heart, Zhuowen's mental energy from his Naiwen palace slowly entered the metal block. After a while, Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes, which were filled with joy. Ha! As expected, it was one of the 6 wings of wind and lightning. Moreover, it was the 3rd wing of the lightning wings, the lightning dragon wing. I really didn't expect that Zhuowen would actually obtain the lightning wing's 3rd wing in this place. Looks like fate really makes fools of people. Zhuowen could not help saying excitedly. At this moment, Xiaohei was also filled with excitement. The more complete the 6 wings of wind and lightning were, the more beneficial it would be to the recovery of its origin energy. Compared to Zhuowen, it wanted Zhuowen to obtain a treasure like the Saint Talisman the most. Hey! How did you get this piece of metal? Do you have any more of this kind of iron? After coming back to her senses, Xiaohei hurriedly pointed at the crimson-armored creature not far away. She had no idea why Zhuowen and Xiaohei were laughing. Seeing that it was her, the crimson-armored creature hurriedly smiled and glanced at the piece of metal. This little one obtained it from a human cultivator who challenged the blood demon inheritance. This is the only piece I have. After taking a closer look at the crimson-armored creature and confirming that it was not lying, Xiaohei sent it away and said regretfully, looks like this guy only has 1 piece of metal in his cave. What a pity. It's already good enough to obtain 1 piece. It's better than nothing. Moreover, the 6 wings of wind and lightning were scattered tens of thousands of years ago. Being able to find 1 piece is already pretty good luck. I've already found 3 pieces. Perhaps in the future, when the time comes, I might be able to obtain the remaining 3 pieces. Zhuowen shook his head. Hearing this, Xiaohei nodded in a serious manner, looks like this dragon lord was a little too greedy. The thunder dragon wings should be the strongest of the thunder wings. If you cultivate it, I'm afraid that there won't be any cultivators in the ultimate emperor realm who can catch up to you. Your speed will be unimaginably fast. A fiery heat surfaced in Zhuowen's eyes when he heard these words. If he was able to completely master this lightning dragon wings, even an expert like Su Chang would not be able to kill him easily if he wanted to escape. Since this matter is settled, let's go. After he found the thunder dragon wings, Zhuowen's mood was rather good. Thus, he directly withdrew the Blood Fiend command token from his Cosmos pouch and formed a seal. The Blood Fiend command token instantly emitted a blood-red glow that enveloped Zhuowen into a blood-red cocoon. There was a teleportation array within the blood demon token. This teleportation array was still in an inactive state. Only by reaching the 8th stage of the blood demon inheritance land and passing through the passage of the 8th stage could the teleportation array be fully activated. Only then could Zhuowen rely on the blood demon token to teleport directly to the core area. Swoosh! As soon as the blood cocoon was formed, it immediately flew toward the entrance of the bloody vortex and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Just now, could it be, the blood demon token? At this moment, the blood-armored being was completely dumbfounded. He had already recognized the blood demon token when Zhuowen took it out, but he wasn't sure. However, now that he had seen Zhuo Wenhua disappear into the blood-red vortex in the form of a blood cocoon, he was 100% sure that it was the blood devil token. The blood demon token is a waste token refined by Lord Blood Demon. How could it appear on a human warrior? Did Lord Blood Demon give it to this human? The blood-armored being frowned. He felt that Zhuowen was even more mysterious. First, he had the bronze coffin that was extremely effective against him. Now, he even took out something as rare as the blood demon token, Rumble. This was a boundless sea of blood. In the middle of the sea of blood, there was a lone island standing alone. The lone island was tens of thousands of miles wide. The sky above it was filled with a misty bloody aura that blocked one's line of sight, making it impossible to see what was on the island. Whoosh! Suddenly, a crack appeared in the sky above the dense bloody aura. From the crack, a blood cocoon that was as tall as a person suddenly flew out and quietly floated above the bloody aura. It was as if a person was silently sizing up the lone island below. Zhuowen stood silently in the blood cocoon. Although it was impossible to see what was inside from the outside, Zhuowen, who was in the blood cocoon, could see everything outside at a glance. Below should be the core area of the Blood Devil's inheritance ground. I really didn't expect there to be such a lone island in this endless sea of blood. It's really quite strange, Zhuowen muttered as he looked down at the lone island from the blood cocoon. Boy! You'd better be careful. I can sense an extremely terrifying existence on this lone island. That existence should be the soul of the blood demon, Xiao Hei said with a grave expression. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded cautiously. Soon after, he controlled the blood cocoon to slowly descend. In fact, he was rather looking forward to seeing the Lu Hantian that the blood-armored being had mentioned. If Lu Hantian was really not dead, with his terrifying talent, he would definitely be extremely powerful. At the very least, he would be much more powerful than Lu Nantian. However, if even such a person could not leave the blood demon's inheritance land, wouldn't it be even more impossible for him to leave? Thinking of this, Zhuowen frowned and his expression became slightly ugly. He did not want to stay in this damned place for the rest of his life. You don't have to worry. You're the first person to reach the peak of Zhongling Mountain. The owner of the bronze coffin probably didn't send you here to harm you. Didn't you see how the bronze coffin suppressed the ancient blood clan? I'm afraid that your bronze coffin might be the key to dealing with the soul of the blood demon, Xiao Hei suddenly said. Maybe. Zhuowen replied casually. However, he was very clear about his own strength. So what if the bronze coffin could suppress the soul of the blood demon? His strength was still too weak. If he could find Lu Hantian in the core area and let Lu Hantian use the bronze coffin to deal with the soul of the blood demon, he might be able to defeat the soul of the blood demon. Suddenly, a thought flashed through Zhuowen's mind. He was indeed very weak, but Lu Hantian was a heaven's pride from 100 years ago. Such a heaven's pride was already invincible in Muqin County. After 100 years, his strength might have already reached the fourth reverend realm. After all, he was someone that even the soul of the blood demon couldn't do anything to. As long as he had the bronze coffin that could suppress the blood demon, Lu Hantian's chances of defeating the soul of the blood demon would greatly increase. Let's go. Let's enter the isolated island and find Lu Hantian first. He's the key to our escape from the blood demon inheritance. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on Zhuowen's face. It seemed that there was always a way out. He might really be able to decipher the blood demon inheritance. Whoosh! The blood cocoon streaked across the void and instantly descended on the isolated island that was filled with blood qi. This was a vast blood-colored wilderness. The strange thing was that there were roots that were as thick as an arm on the ground of this wilderness. They extended to the four corners of the wilderness and constantly pulsed like the veins of a human body. It was an extremely horrifying sight. Hiss! The blood cocoon slowly dissipated, revealing Zhuowen's slender body. At this moment, Zhuowen's face revealed a trace of doubt. This wilderness gave him an extremely strange feeling, especially the blood-colored veins that crisscrossed around him. It was as if Zhuowen was in the internal organs of some unknown giant beast. What a strange place. Zhuowen couldn't help but mutter to himself as he looked around. Boy! Go ahead and take a look. There seems to be some movement at the corner up ahead. Suddenly, Xiao Hei's voice sounded in his mind. Hearing this, Zhuowen immediately noticed that there was a huge blood-colored hill a few hundred meters away. At the bottom of the hill, there was a winding path that extended to the other side of the hill. The movement that Xiao Hei mentioned earlier should be on the other side of the hill. Is there something over there? Zhuowen asked tentatively. This isolated island is very special. It can actually suppress divine sense. I can only sense that there's movement on the other side of the hill, but I'm not sure what it is. You should go and take a look. Xiao Hei shrugged. He was probably the leader of this group of Blood Clan members. The aura on his body was much stronger than the other Blood Clan members. He had probably reached the ultimate six-wheel emperor realm. Whoosh! This huge Blood Clan member took the lead and instantly arrived within 100 meters of Zhuowen. Furthermore, the distance between them was constantly closing. Human! Obediently accept your death. This Blood Clan member bared his teeth and roared. The blood qi in his hands surged and condensed into a long double-edged axe that was several feet long. He threw it with his right hand, and the double-edged axe spun violently and smashed directly at Zhuowen's back. Zhuowen frowned slightly when he heard the sound of something piercing through the air behind him. This Blood Clan member was not done yet. He actually did not want to let him go. He snorted coldly and flipped his right hand. The huge bronze coffin instantly appeared in his hands. He swung it violently, and the air was violently torn apart as it blasted towards the huge double-edged axe behind him. Clang! The crisp sound of metal clashing rang out. Then, the Blood Clan member was shocked to discover that the double-edged axe that he had thrown out had actually been shattered by the bronze coffin in the hands of the human in front of him. What a strange coffin. I can actually feel a trace of fear from it. The Blood Clan leader frowned slightly and looked at the bronze coffin in Zhuowen's hands with fear. He took a step forward and quickly rushed towards Zhuowen. After being delayed by the double-edged axe, Zhuowen's speed had also greatly decreased, and the Blood Clan leader caught up with him in an instant. Human ancient martial art practitioner, you killed my fellow clan member. Do you think I'll let it go just like that? You'll be buried with my fellow clan member. The Blood Clan leader revealed a trace of a sinister smile on his face. His huge blood claw was like a monstrous wave as it violently smashed towards Zhuowen below. Endless blood rays exploded, and the surrounding space collapsed. Damn it! Seeing the Blood Clan leader's blood claw pressing down on him, Zhuowen's face revealed a trace of anxiety. If he was delayed by this Blood Clan leader now, it would be too late for him to escape when the group of Blood Clan members behind him caught up. I can only deal with this Blood Clan leader first. If I let him drag this on, I'll be in danger. A trace of cold light flashed in Zhuowen's eyes. He did not hold back and swung the bronze coffin fiercely towards the Blood Clan leader. At the same time, the mental strength of the 4th grade Greater Mastery gushed out as he activated the 4th grade Origin Array Infinite Sword Aura to perform 3 major sword moves. Suddenly, the bronze coffin swelled up and became 100 feet tall. It was like a pillar that supported the heavens as it violently smashed onto the body of the Blood Clan leader. The sword light formed by the Infinite Sword Aura was like a terrifying whirlpool that also enveloped the Blood Clan leader. The Blood Clan leader was not afraid as he violently swung his huge blood claw. Endless blood chi was misty as it directly tore apart the sword light whirlpool formed by the Infinite Sword Aura. Its strength was extremely terrifying. After tearing apart the sword light whirlpool, the bronze coffin that was a few hundred feet tall came one after another and violently pressed onto the body of the Blood Clan leader. "Break for me!" The Blood Clan leader shouted as he stretched out both of his claws. They were like 2 huge blood mountains as they smashed onto the huge bronze coffin in the sky. Hiss hiss hiss. What? This coffin? The moment he came into contact with the bronze coffin, the Blood Clan leader was shocked to find that the green light on the surface of the coffin was like maggots that ate away at the bones. It directly corroded his hands. His arms were instantly eaten clean, and the corrosive force continued to corrode his torso. Damn it! Get lost! The leader of the Blood Clan was both shocked and furious. The intense fear caused him to explode with a terrifying power. He directly shook off the bronze coffin and spat out a mouthful of blood. Like a meteor, he smashed into the ground. What? The leader was actually defeated? That human brat's aura is very weak. Why is the leader in such a sorry state? The countless Blood Clan members that were rushing over from behind also revealed shocked expressions when they saw the Blood Clan leader in such a sorry state. All of you, go. Kill that damned human. Otherwise, all of you will die. In the deep pit, the Blood Clan leader's eyes were red as he roared at the sky with unwillingness. The human in front of him was too despicable. He was obviously very weak, but he actually had that strange bronze coffin on him that could restrain his strength. Feeling the Blood Clan leader's monstrous anger, the countless Blood Clan members behind could not help but shiver. Their leader was not a kind person. Even if it was them from the same clan, he would kill them without hesitation. They did not dare to disobey him in the slightest. Kill! Kill that human ancient martial art practitioner! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Upon receiving the Blood Kindred leader's order, hundreds of Blood Kindred charged towards Zhuo, who was not far away, without any regard for their lives. Zhuo had wasted too much time fighting with the Blood Kindred leader just now, and the Blood Kindred who had fallen behind had already caught up. Instantly, hundreds of Blood Clan members surrounded Zhuo. They stared coldly at Zhuo with their scarlet eyes. Damn it! This time, there's really no way out. Looking at the densely packed Blood Clan members around him, Zhuo's expression was extremely ugly. He did not expect that he would still be unable to shake off the pursuit of these Blood Clan members. At the same time, he flattered him a little. However, in his heart, he was cursing endlessly. Ha! I like honest juniors like you the most. This old man did not save you for nothing. What an honest child. The man on the blood spear looked up to the sky and laughed. His laughter was extremely exaggerated. It seemed that if he did not laugh so loudly, he would not be able to display his aura. With a stomp of his foot, he drove the blood spear in front of Zhuo. Only then did Zhuo clearly see this person's true appearance. Although he had greasy hair and a dirty face, and his appearance was sloppy, he had a straight nose, spirited eyes, and sword-like eyebrows. He knew that if this person took care of himself well, he would definitely be a handsome man. Moreover, Zhuowen also noticed that this sloppy man's facial features were somewhat similar to Lu Nanshan's. Zhuowen's eyes flashed. He knew that this sloppy man in front of him was very likely the former #1 prodigy, Lu Hantian. Senior, thank you for saving my life this time. I am Zhuowen. When the sloppy man came closer, Zhuowen hurriedly cupped his hands respectfully. Oh. So your name is Zhuowen. This core area is not a place you can casually barge into. You are so weak, but you were able to reach this area. I'm afraid you have many trump cards on you. The sloppy man looked Zhuowen up and down. When he discovered that Zhuowen was merely an ultimate three-wheel emperor, he couldn't help but reveal a look of astonishment. He clearly couldn't understand how someone as weak as Zhuowen had managed to make it to the core zone. Zhuowen did not respond to the sloppy man's words. He had many secrets, so he naturally would not reveal them so easily. Instead, he changed the topic. Senior, you must be the former #1 prodigy of Muqin County, Lu Hantian, right? After entering the Blood Demon's legacy, I heard from an ancient Blood Clan member that you were still alive. Lu Hantian. If you are talking about Lu Hantian, who is handsome and charming, who is loved by everyone, who makes flowers bloom when they see him, who makes girls blush when they see him, and who makes boys feel inferior when they see him, then I am him. When he said that, the sloppy man patted his chest. His face was filled with narcissism, and the corners of his mouth curled into what he thought was an extremely elegant smile, revealing a row of neat teeth. That should be you. Zhuowen's face darkened when he saw the sloppy man's narcissistic expression. He felt like thousands of horses were galloping through his heart. Lu Hantian was extremely famous in Muqin County. He was basically a legend to many young geniuses. It was said that Lu Hantian was the only prodigy who had the qualifications to challenge the top 10 on the Azure Emperor rankings. However, he died after choosing the Blood Demon's legacy, which made many prodigies feel rather regretful. Now that Zhuowen had met such a prodigy who was revered by countless people, he discovered that this guy was actually a narcissist. This left Zhuowen extremely speechless. Although he cursed Lu Hantian's narcissism in his heart, Zhuowen was rather impressed by the former's strength. This Lu Hantian was indeed a prodigy. Even in this barren core area, his strength did not decrease. Instead, it increased. He was much stronger than Lu Nantian of the House of Marquis Qin. This was the first time that Zhuowen had seen Lu Hantian in person. Actually, he still had many questions about him. Why did Lu Hantian insist on choosing the Blood Demon's legacy back then? It was rumored that Lu Hantian had escaped from the Blood Demon's legacy and brought out a portion of the legacy. However, he died due to his heavy injuries. Obviously, this rumor was completely false. However, there were still many people who believed it. Lu Nantian had also tacitly agreed to this rumor. So why did Lu Nantian do this? Zhuowen was certain that Lu Nantian must know that Lu Hantian was still in the Blood Demon's legacy. However, why didn't he think of a way to save such a prodigy? Could it be that there was some taboo? Boom! 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 Just as Zhuowen was letting his imagination run wild, the entire island suddenly trembled. The blood qi above the island boiled and swirled, forming a funnel shape. It constantly condensed and turned into a huge human face that was several thousand feet tall. Lu Hantian. Your guts are really getting bigger and bigger. You actually dared to attack this demon's blood clan when this demon was asleep. You're courting death. A majestic voice constantly reverberated between heaven and earth. The ring-shaped sound wave passed through the void and collapsed space, directly blasting towards Lu Hantian and Zhuowen. Puchi! Zhuowen violently spat out a mouthful of blood. He couldn't help but cover his ears with both hands. This sound wave was too powerful. Zhuowen had only just come into contact with it, but he had already suffered heavy injuries. Lu Hantian frowned slightly. He waved his sleeve and a powerful energy enveloped Zhuowen, blocking the blood demon's sound wave. His eyes were filled with fear. Humph. Blood demon, even if your might was monstrous in the ancient era and your strength was only second to the sage realm, you're just a soul now. It won't be that easy for you to deal with me. However, I have a guest today, so I won't tangle with you. We'll fight another day. As he spoke, Lu Hantian directly lifted Zhuowen up as if he was lifting up a little chick. He stomped his foot and the huge blood spear beneath his feet shot out, burrowing back into the ground and disappearing. In the sky, the huge human face didn't make a move. Over the past 100 years, it had fought Lu Hantian too many times. Although its strength completely suppressed Lu Hantian, this Lu Hantian was also a heaven-gifted genius. Chapter 565. Talking freely hundreds of meters underground, there was an extremely large space. A stone table, 2 stone stools, and a stone bed were the only decorations in this huge space. Little guy, how did you reach the core area of the blood demon inheritance? With your strength, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for you to pass the 18 stages of the blood demon inheritance, right? On the stone stools, Lu Hantian and Zhuowen sat opposite each other. Lu Hantian's somewhat sloppy face revealed a rare trace of seriousness. I wonder if Senior has heard of the blood demon token. Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he asked. Oh. So it's the blood demon token. No wonder you can reach the core area. It's because of the power of the blood demon token. However, entering the blood demon inheritance was a wrong choice. This is a place of trouble. It's easy to enter, but it's as difficult as ascending to the heavens to leave. You might even lose your life. After hearing about the blood demon token, Lu Hantian's face revealed a relieved expression. Clearly, he had heard of the use of the blood demon token. However, he felt pity for Zhuowen. After entering the blood demon inheritance, it would be difficult for him to escape for the rest of his life. Senior, you've been here for almost 100 years. Have you not found a way to escape? Zhuowen frowned and could not help but ask. Lu Hantian smiled bitterly and shook his head. He said, for 100 years, I've been trying to find a way to escape. Unfortunately, it's useless. The only way now is to destroy the slumbering soul of the blood demon. Once the blood demon dies, this space will collapse on its own. Unfortunately, although the blood demon only has a strand of soul left, it's impossible to destroy it without reaching the Emperor realm. Must I reach the Emperor realm to destroy the soul of the blood demon? Is there no other way? Hearing this, Zhuowen's heart thumped. It was not so easy to reach the sovereign realm. One should know that the Qing Xian Empire was vast, but the Qing Emperor was the only one who had reached the sovereign realm. It could be seen how difficult it was to reach the sovereign realm. If there's another way, it would be to have the demon-suppressing green coffin left behind by an ancient senior on the peak of Zhongling Mountain. This demon-suppressing green coffin is extremely effective against evil demons like the blood demon. If I have the demon-suppressing green coffin, I can kill the blood demon's soul. However, it's a pity that I didn't manage to cross the final step of Zhongling Mountain. There was no pressure on that final step, and it was a real illusion. I was too young back then, and there was a hole in my heart. Unfortunately, I failed. What a pity. When he spoke up to hear, Lu Hantian couldn't help but shake his head in regret. Obviously, he felt extremely helpless and regretful for not being able to ascend to the peak of Zhongling Mountain all those years ago. Hearing the words real illusion, Zhuowen couldn't help but think highly of the Lu Hantian in front of him. No wonder this person was called the peerless genius of Muqin County that appeared once in 100 years. He was actually able to sense that the final step of Zhongling Mountain was a real illusion. Unfortunately, this kind of genius didn't have such a strong heart back then. In the end, he failed at the last step. Senior. Perhaps I have a way to help you defeat the blood demon's soul. After pondering for a moment, Zhuowen finally decided to take a gamble. He knew that the demon-suppressing green coffin that Lu Hantian mentioned should be the bronze coffin on his body. He was too weak, and even if he had the demon-suppressing green coffin, it was impossible for him to be a match for the blood demon's soul. However, the Lu Hantian in front of him was different. Although this person's strength was not as strong as the blood demon's soul, the blood demon's soul was unable to do anything to this person for 100 years. From this, it could be seen how strong Lu Hantian was. Therefore, if he wanted to escape from this place, he could only rely on Lu Hantian. Lu Hantian shook his head and said, "Little fellow, you can't speak carelessly like this. Even I haven't found a way to defeat the blood demon's soul. How can a little fellow like you who stinks of milk do it?" Boom! Zhuowen didn't reply. He patted his Qiankuan bag and a strand of green light flashed. A bronze coffin that was around 3 meters in size suddenly smashed onto the ground, causing the ground to crack and gravel to float up. Demon suppressing green coffin. Originally, Lu Hantian's face was filled with an indifferent expression, but at this moment, when his gaze converged on the bronze coffin that suddenly appeared, he was completely stunned, as if he had seen a ghost. "Why do you have this demon-suppressing green coffin on you?" Lu Hantian was still in disbelief as he stared fixedly at the bronze coffin and muttered. "I've climbed to the peak of Zhongling Mountain before." Zhuowen's expression was extremely calm as he softly said. Lu Hantian's body trembled as he stared at Zhuowen with a complicated gaze and said, "No wonder you dared to come to the blood demon inheritance. So it turns out that you've climbed to the peak of Zhongling Mountain before. Your talent and potential far surpasses mine. It's true that there are talented people in every generation, and the new generation excels the old. Senior is too modest. Junior's current strength is simply insignificant. If I want to leave this place, I will have to rely on Senior." Zhuowen cupped his hands in a rather humble manner. The reason he took out the demon-suppressing green coffin was also a gamble. He was betting on Lu Hantian's character. If this Lu Hantian had evil intentions because of this bronze coffin, he could only admit that he was unlucky. Fortunately, this Lu Hantian wasn't such a despicable person. "Ha! Good, good, you're called Zhuowen, right? This demon-suppressing green coffin is a top-grade heaven-ranked spirit treasure. We haven't known each other for long, yet you dare to take out such a precious treasure. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you to silence you?" Lu Hantian suddenly said with a smile. However, Zhuowen laughed and said, "Right now, the two of us are trapped in the core area, and the only way is to destroy the blood demon's soul. The demon-suppressing green coffin is indeed powerful, but this brat is too weak, so it's impossible for him to unleash the power of such a treasure. And Senior, you are such a handsome, elegant, lovable, and peerless handsome man. With this demon-suppressing green coffin, you have a very high chance of defeating the soul of the blood demon. I am only trying to save myself." Hearing this, Lu Hantian immediately laughed out loud and said, "Not bad, not bad. You brat, you know the big picture and your words are sweet. It's to my liking. Hee, from now on, you're my, Lu Hantian's, brother. If anyone dares to have any ideas about you, I'll kill them." At this moment, Lu Hantian's smile was extremely lewd and annoying. Furthermore, he casually placed his hand on Zhuowen's shoulder, his face full of enthusiasm. Seeing Lu Hantian's immoral performance, Zhuowen's head was filled with black lines, and he cursed in his heart. However, he could feel the excitement in Lu Hantian's heart. Obviously, he had been trapped here for too long, and now that Zhuowen had brought the demon-suppressing green coffin, it was like a timely rain to him. How could he not be happy? "In the future, you don't have to call me Senior. Just call me Big Brother Hantian. We're brothers now, so there's no need to be so formal. Moreover, I, your big brother, am only borrowing your demon-suppressing green coffin for a while. After we escape from here, I'll return it to you." Suddenly, Lu Hantian's expression became serious as he said. Hearing this, Zhuowen couldn't help but be stunned. Originally, after taking out the demon-suppressing green coffin, he didn't plan to take it back from Lu Hantian. After all, Lu Hantian's strength was too strong. If he didn't give it to him, Zhuowen wouldn't be able to do anything to him. However, Lu Hantian just had to make a solemn promise to him. This caused Zhuowen to have a higher opinion of the sloppy man in front of him. If Big Brother feels that the demon-suppressing green coffin is useful, you can take it and use it. After all, Little Brother's strength is weak, and I'm simply unable to unleash the full power of the demon-suppressing green coffin. I'm afraid. Zhuowen was somewhat hesitant. Don't be so wishy-washy. The demon-suppressing green coffin was obtained by you. As Big Brother, I naturally won't take Little Brother's things. Moreover, this core area contains the place where the soul of the blood demon is sleeping. There are many treasures inside. If we really destroy the soul of the blood demon, the treasures inside will be enough for the two of us to split. There's no need to be so wishy-washy. Lu Hantian shook his head and said with some displeasure. Seeing Lu Hantian so insistent, Zhuowen could only silently nod his head. However, he felt a warm current in his heart. Big Brother. With this bronze coffin, how confident are you in defeating the soul of the blood demon? Zhuowen suddenly asked. Hearing this, Lu Hantian became serious and said, it should be 60%. The soul of the blood demon is most afraid of the demon-suppressing green coffin. With such a treasure, the blood demon won't be able to unleash much of its strength. However, Zhuowen frowned. Even with the demon-suppressing green coffin, Lu Hantian only had 60% confidence. It seemed that the soul of the blood demon was indeed terrifying. Zhuowen. I need a period of time to refine the demon-suppressing green coffin. During this period of time, you should cultivate and meditate in my cave. I see that you are also a good spear user. That rock wall is your Big Brother's training room. There are many things that I have left behind. You can take a look. Maybe it will be of some help to you. Also, it's best that you don't leave this cave. Right now, you are too weak. If you are discovered by the soul of the blood demon, you will definitely die. Remember this. After solemnly instructing him, Lu Hantian took the demon-suppressing green coffin and directly entered a cave in the cave. He prepared to silently refine the demon-suppressing green coffin. At this moment, it involved the soul of the blood demon, so he naturally had no choice but to pay attention to it. Zhuowen did not plan to disturb Lu Hantian. Instead, he looked around the cave. This cave was indeed very simple and crude. Other than the daily necessities, there were no extra decorations. It was just like the life of a caveman. After walking around, Zhuowen finally arrived at Lu Hantian's training room. However, just as he stepped into the door of the training room, a sharp cold light shot out. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He quickly took out his bone spear and placed it in front of his chest to block the cold light. Dang dang dang. Retreating more than 10 steps, Zhuowen groaned. The blood and qi in his body boiled. He looked at the entrance of the training room in shock. Could it be that there is someone else in the training room? His expression became serious. Zhuowen was somewhat unwilling to admit defeat. He took a step and once again arrived at the entrance of the training room. Suddenly, an even sharper cold light shot out from the room. At this moment, Zhuowen was already prepared. The bone spear in his hand trembled. Countless spear shadows erupted, directly and accurately blocking the sudden cold light. Clang clang clang. The sound of metal clashing continuously resounded in the cave, and sparks flew everywhere. Break for me. Chapter 566. Luring the snake out of its hole. There was not a single person in the large training room. The cold light that flashed out was actually emitted from the spear marks on the walls of the room. Obviously, these spear marks were left behind by Lu Hantian when he was practicing his spear. Just the spear marks alone had such terrifying power. It was really hard to tell how strong Lu Hantian was. On the walls of the room, other than the dense spear marks, Zhuowen saw lines of dense handwriting in the corner of the room. Looking carefully, these handwriting were actually the experiences of Lu Hantian when he was practicing his spear. Lu Hantian is a genius. The experiences of these walls are extremely important to you. Xiao Hei's voice suddenly sounded. Nodding his head, Zhuowen carefully looked at the dense handwriting on the wall. The contents were extremely obscure and difficult to understand. Furthermore, he discovered that there was an unfamiliar term, spear intent, mentioned in between the lines. With a toss of the dragon, the universe is broken. With a single spear, the borders of the country are destroyed. With 100 generations of soldiers under the heavens, the path of cold condensation is a pit for 10,000 people. The spear intent, the soul of the spear, is the way of the overlord, the way of the arrogant and unrestrained. There is no me in this world. If others laugh at me, I laugh at others. This is the spear intent. Zhuo Wen's eyes revealed a look of comprehension as he carefully studied the contents of the words on the barrier. The bone spear in his hand could not help but dance like a swimming dragon, like a long python, like a waterfall, like a rainbow bridge. In an instant, the entire training room was filled with Zhuowen's figure. Zhuowen's dance became faster and faster, more and more intense. The power of his spear actually faintly caused the space to tremble and show signs of collapse. Countless streams of air surrounded him as his aura surged. Clang! Suddenly, Zhuowen's spear swung out. As if it had pierced through space, a clear sound of the spear rang out. It was distant and misty. The surrounding space actually collapsed, revealing a sinister vortex of black holes. Spear intent, what is it? Withdrawing his spear, Zhuowen's gaze turned blurry. Soon after, he silently sat down in a cross-legged position. The words within the training room had caused Zhuowen to be greatly moved and enlightened. At the same time, for some unknown reason, he actually had an extremely strong desire for the spear aura in his heart for the first time. Mysteries within mysteries, the great Tao is the simplest. Time passed day by day, and in the blink of an eye, more than half a month had passed. During this half a month, Zhuowen basically sat cross-legged in the cultivation room. Occasionally, he would frown, and occasionally, he would wave his bone spear, dancing gracefully as the spear shot out like a dragon. If Zhuowen were to face Zhu Qi at this time, he would not need to use his trump card. He could use spear intent to defeat Zhu Qi with a single spear strike. This was the benefit that spear intent brought to Zhuowen. Lu Hantian nodded his head. His face revealed a trace of a smile as he said, "Fortunately, I did not disappoint you. Now, I have basically grasped the power of the demon-suppressing green coffin. If I were to face the soul of the blood demon this time, I can be sure that I have at least a 60% chance of killing it." Hearing Lu Hantian say this, Zhuowen's face also revealed a moved expression. The battle with the soul of the blood demon was very crucial. He did not want Lu Hantian to fail. "Big brother Hantian, help me guard. I can feel that my fourth heavenly tribulation is about to arrive. I'm afraid that this place will soon be discovered by the soul of the blood demon." Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he suddenly said, "You want to cross the fourth heavenly tribulation?" Hearing this, Lu Hantian could not help but be startled. The cave he opened was extremely hidden. It was one of the few core areas that the soul of the blood demon could not explore. It was because of this cave that although Lu Hantian's strength was not as strong as the soul of the blood demon, he could often escape from its pursuit. "All right. You can cross the tribulation and draw out the soul of the blood demon. This time, it's time for you to understand everything with the soul of the blood demon. However, you have to be careful. Lu Hantian nodded his head. Big brother Hantian, you can rest assured. I will do my best to be careful. When crossing the tribulation, the soul of the blood demon will not dare to attack me while I'm crossing the tribulation. The one who should be careful is you. Nodding his head, Zhuowen looked at Lu Hantian with worry. He was very clear that Lu Hantian was about to confront the soul of the blood demon. Zhuowen had already experienced the strength of the soul of the blood demon, so he was naturally worried about Lu Hantian. Ha! Don't worry. With the demon-suppressing green coffin in hand, your big brother won't die. Hurry up and cross the tribulation. I can't wait to have a showdown with the soul of the blood demon. Lu Hantian laughed heartily. Shaking his head, Zhuowen didn't say anything. Instead, he sat down cross-legged and circulated the aura in his body. Instantly, his aura shot up like a rocket. The epiphany in the cultivation room not only allowed Zhuowen to grasp the basics of spear intent, it also allowed him to break through the bottleneck of the Ultimate Emperor realm and naturally reach the Ultimate Emperor realm. When Zhuo Zhengwen's aura soared to the level of an Ultimate Four-Wheel Emperor, the bloody qi in the air above the lone island suddenly surged and dispersed. Dark clouds that resembled black dragons continuously condensed. Occasionally, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled within the dark clouds. It was an exceptionally frightening sight. Tribulation of the heavens and earth? Below the isolated island, countless bloody auras condensed and turned into a huge human face. It was the soul of the blood demon. At this moment, the soul of the blood demon was looking up at the gathering dark clouds in the sky. Looks like the heavens are really helping me. That new human cultivator has actually broken through and crossed the tribulation at this time. Then, the location of Lu Hantian's cave will be completely exposed because of this heavenly tribulation. Ha! Lu Hantian, the game of cat and mouse is about to come to an end. At this point, the soul of the blood demon stared intently at the tribulation clouds in the sky. He knew that when the first heavenly tribulation descended, Lu Hantian's cave would be completely exposed. Boom! A bolt of lightning as thick as a bucket came crashing down from the 9 heavens with a loud boom. It streaked across the sky above the isolated island. Over there. Lu Hantian, you won't be able to escape today. After the cave is exposed, you have nowhere to hide. Be a good boy and accept your death. Ha! The moment the first bolt of lightning flashed, the soul of the blood demon laughed loudly. The huge human face turned back into a bloody cloud and shot towards the source of the lightning in the distance. This was a huge basin. Not a single blade of grass grew in the surroundings. It was desolate and uninhabited. With a boom, the huge bolt of lightning struck the center of the basin, forming a huge black hole. There was actually a completely different world below the hole. A young man sat there silently with his legs crossed. His entire body flickered with golden light. He waved his right hand and actually caught the terrifying bolt of lightning. With a squeeze of his hand, the bolt of lightning was obliterated into nothingness. Zhuowen, who possessed the battle prowess of an Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator, didn't care about 4 heavenly tribulations at all. To Zhuowen, a bolt of lightning of this level couldn't do any harm to him at all. A huge cloud of blood shot over and stopped above the basin. Then, a huge human face appeared. The blood demon stared at the young man in the black hole and laughed proudly. Lu Hantian, why haven't you come out yet? You probably didn't expect that the human you saved would expose your cave abode in the end because of the tribulation, right? Ha! Without a cave, you won't be able to escape my pursuit no matter where you go. You're dead for sure. Boom! As soon as the blood demon finished speaking, a blood spear hundreds of meters long shot into the sky. It tore through the ground and shot into the sky with a whoosh. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.